Welcome in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is Monday, February 3rd on Jocks 94.5. Glad you're with us. I think yesterday, one of the busiest February days of college football news that I can remember. And then one of the busiest sports weekends as far as news and different things taking places in quite some time. But Alabama has a new offensive coordinator. Greg, your thoughts on Ryan Grubb joining the staff?
Really fired up about it. I'm glad that this was able to happen. I had originally heard that it was possible that he would be joining the staff, but it would be in an analyst role, in a supervisor role, partly because he's still under contract in Seattle, and, he still has years left on his deal in Seattle financially, but from what I gather, there is no offset. So that's really helpful when it comes to putting together something like this. So him being added to the staff is enormous. He's obviously a tremendous play caller. And I think Nick Sheridan did a fine job last year. I know people disagree in some cases. I think Nick Sheridan was fine. I just think a guy with that much experience can only benefit the staff with an extra set of eyes. So now you have how many guys on your offensive staff that have experience calling plays? I think it's a great situation for him, and I also think it's a great situation for Alabama to be able to bring him in.
What does it mean for Nick Sheridan moving forward? Is he the co-offensive coordinator? Does he share play calling duties? What does it mean for Nick Sheridan?
No, I think Nick Sheridan will probably just relinquish all play calling duties to Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb can look at it holistically because at Washington, Ryan Grubb was also the offensive line coach. So he now can exclusively focus on game planning. You have Nick Sheridan, who can move back into his role as kind of a tight end. And now you obviously have a good offensive line coach, a good recruiting offensive line coach in place down there as well. So I think TBD on like how it affects the trickle down. But if you have an opportunity to add a guy like Ryan Grubb, I mean, you've been around him. Like you have an opportunity to add him, you bring him in and you figure it out after the fact, especially knowing the long standing relationship he has with Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ryan Grubb. You mentioned it. I think it's, number one, pretty cool that he is a former offensive line coach. I think it just gives you a different perspective of the trenches of the run game. I can recall sitting in a meeting with he and Kalen, and they were, because Kalen kind of came back in to grab something, and they started to joke back and forth about how they would debate how they were going to block a play if they should run the ball against a certain look. And the Grubb usually wanted to run the ball. Kalen sometimes would want to throw the ball, but to have that different type of mentality and different viewpoints, but yet be able to get along to the point that you understand, all right, he might be right on this one. Maybe we should just go ahead and throw the ball here. Maybe we should run the ball against that look. I think it brings a different perspective on things, and you see it a different way. I think he's awesome. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a great play caller. I think the players love playing for him. I love his perspective on offense, and I think it's a massive gift for Alabama. I thought that trifecta, the two of those with Scott Huff was kind of like the, forming a Voltron from the coaching staff, so to speak. But to get Grubb back in with Kalen DeBoer, I just think it's massive. I'm super interested now just to kind of see, once the quarterback situation is finalized, which direction the offense goes, because I don't think it has to be one thing. That's the thing that we love about Kalen. It's one of the great things about Ryan Grubb also, is that they're going to move that thing around their personnel, and they're going to make it to what the personnel is going to allow it to be its best. And neither one of those guys have egos at all. I mean, at all. And whatever they feel like is going to allow them to move the football is what they're going to go with. And that's just another reason I think it's a nice gift for Alabama.
Yeah, see, that's kind of where I'm at. Is I feel like one would probably assume, just looking at the staff, like most staffs, there's egos involved. I'm telling you, with this group, for whatever reason, they just don't have one. And you just hit it on the head. Like, it'd be one thing. I'd be concerned about the impact of Nick Sheridan. I'd be concerned about Ryan Grubb stepping into a situation that was occupied previously by a guy that had been elevated as a result of him leaving the program last spring. So I don't know how you feel about it. Like, these guys. I mean, I just am not concerned about the, quote, too many cooks in the kitchen rebuttal that a lot of people have had when it comes to this hiring. Like, I think if anything, man, the rich get richer in this situation.
I haven't even heard that. I haven't seen that, but I can understand why some folks would say it. And no, I wouldn't agree with it. It would not be something that I would deem problematic. These guys have worked together for too long. I mean, Grubb and DeBoer go back to D3. So, I mean, that's not
right.
They're not sitting there trying to compete with one another about who can call the plays the best, or, who's trying to get the next job. It's not one guy trying to escalate their career over the other. honestly, I hadn't even thought about that after I heard this, yesterday, early afternoon, until you just said it. That's the first time it's even crossed my mind. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of how problematic I feel like that might be.
Well, good. I'm glad you see it the same way I do, because it didn't even for a second make me think, oh man, they have too many guys that are going to be pulling too many different directions. Like, there's a singular voice. That singular voice is Ryan Grubb. Kalen DeBoer trusts him implicitly. He will hand over any and all play calling duties. They have worked miraculously together their whole career for the most part. I mean, have they been separated? Sure, for like 6 months here and there, including last year. But when Grubb was in Seattle calling plays for the Seattle Seahawks. But for the most part, I mean, these guys go way, way back. They can finish each other's sentences. They're best friends. And I don't think either one would have had the success that they've had in coaching if not for the other. So I think there's a lot of big time mutual respect all over the place when it comes to these guys as well.
Does it change your opinion on any of the players, personnel, anything that's on the roster right now? Somebody that you might give a better opportunity to be something different or do something different, or maybe it leans this guy over that guy, anything along those lines?
You mean like who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is that kind of what you mean by that? Because I don't necessarily know if this is like an indicator. Now, Grubb is definitely a guy that wants to be a little bit more balanced from a run standpoint than maybe what they had last year. Like, they really want to create balance, and they really want to create a lot of looks with pre-snapped shifts and motions, multiple tight end sets. So I don't know about you. No, I wouldn't say that this is an indicator of, hey, they're going to go in this direction, or, oh yeah, now this means Keelan Russell's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't get that sense at all. But if you do, I'd love to hear why.
No, I just thought that is there a more emphasis on maybe tight ends? Do they need more receivers now? Do they need different style backs? Is there a back that you feel like has an edge? I haven't really thought of any. Just didn't know if you've thought of this to the point that this is going to have to change on the roster, or I think this has a certain advantage on the roster because of what they're capable of. Just anything along those lines. The offense is not going to look too different. I mean, people, if they think it's going to look different or be different, it's not. It's just
right.
You have a different mentality that's going to be putting the plan together and actually calling the plays now.
Yeah, and just a guy with just a ridiculous amount of experience, has great feel for the game. And anyone that's ever sat down with Ryan Grubb, like, I'm kind of amazed that he wasn't given a good, long, hard look at Washington to become the head coach when Kalen DeBoer left. Like, this guy just feels like a head coach. Like, he's smart. He's extremely buttoned up, extremely detail-oriented. And I'm hoping, with all the rules they now have for full-time assistants, I'm hoping that his sole focus won't be necessarily to manage the room, but his sole focus will be on putting a game plan together, which can allow Kalen to move a little bit more maybe towards the defensive side, maybe have just a little bit more hands-on approach with some of the things they're doing defensively, even though Kane, Womack, and Mo Linguist did an amazing job last year as the season went along and guys got more comfortable. But I think the more guys you have that are kind of in charge of one specific area, if you're not having to manage a room and manage a group and coach that group from a fundamental standpoint, and you can focus exclusively on how do I put the X's in position to take advantage of the O's, that's a great spot to be in. So I'm really, really, really happy that this is able to happen. I know this was not a slam dunk, but I do know that Grubb was either not coaching this year or coaching at Alabama, which is also encouraging based on what I was told. Now, how accurate is that? I don't know. That's just what I was told. But I am pretty optimistic about his experience combined with a new starting quarterback. All that's going to be very beneficial, I think, for the Tide this year.
Oh, it's a big plus in a lot of ways. Your thoughts on it? 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Ryan Grubb now as Alabama's offensive coordinator. Does it change your expectations for this upcoming season for what Alabama may be capable of? 205-834-9450. You can text into the show. Also, you can tweet in at Mac and Cube. Always be a part of the show that way. You can always be a part of a great car buying experience at Royal Automotive. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location, selection and savings unmatched. Royal, The only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. 0% for 60 months is back on select Volkswagen Tiguan models. Get up to $10,000 off select 2025 GMC Sierra models, or choose the luxury and safety you expect from the Volvo SUV lineup of XC40, XC60, and XC90. Go visit my friends at Royal. They're going to help you get the best deal available. All offers valid through March 3rd, 2025. Certain restrictions apply. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Auto Mart, Volvo Cars in Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. Online at royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. And remember, for every ride, there's Royal. No Paul Feinbaum today, but we will visit with Bill Rabunowitz in a couple of minutes because Chip Kelly has taken the offensive coordinator job with the Raiders. Now, keep in mind, this is also massive news because last week, Jim Knowles, Ohio State defensive coordinator, signed with Penn State, so he leaves. Earlier over the weekend, Justin Fry, offensive line coach, reported he's going to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Greg, you get Chip Kelly to the Raiders for a deal that sounds like it's going to be $6 million per to call plays for Pete Carroll's football team out in Las Vegas. He'll have some good weapons to sort of begin things as he works there back in the NFL. But it's great for Chip Kelly, and obviously we know what he wanted by leaving being the head coach at UCLA to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. This furthers that, I think, as far as just focusing on football. But you have to look at Ryan Day's staff now and say, all right, man, I'm a little bit concerned if I'm an Ohio State fan that both coordinators are going to be gone. Your offensive line coach is gone. A defensive analyst is gone. That's a lot of brain power that's leaving that Ohio State football staff. Dude,
a lot. But here's the thing. As crazy as it sounds, like all their guys that are going for insane amounts of money. I mean, $6 million a year to call plays? What?
It's nuts.
Like, when I was in the NFL, there was like a handshake agreement that you did not pay an NFL head coach $10 million a year. You wouldn't do it. Like Bill Belichick, all those guys were under $10 million. So amongst the owners are like, guys, we're not going there. Not doing it. Well, look at where they're at now. It's insane what's transpired with coaching salaries. And I'm not saying it's not justified. These are hard jobs and these guys are excellent at what they do. But my goodness, like that is something else, man. And Knowles at 3. So I think, yes, it's hard for Ryan Day to sit there and contemplate, man, I hate losing these guys, but like I can't pay these guys that much money. It's crazy.
Well, it's a testament to Ohio State, I think, number one, that it's taken that kind of money to get your guys out of there. And number two, that obviously they put themselves in a position that the guys on the staff are desired by other folks. And it's just going to be a lot to replace. We don't usually go too crazy over coaching changes. I think that Chip Kelly, when you'd look at it and say, I mean, yeah, Chip's a little bit different, but Ryan could go call the offense if he had to. So he's not going to have a problem finding that guy. But man, it's kind of wild.
But Chip did add some stuff this year, though,
no doubt,
in the run game and stuff. And look, I love Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day is an excellent football coach. Any criticism he's received, I think, is unwarranted. I've said that for a long time. I think you see it the same way. But I do think there are aspects of his play calling where there are slight blind spots. Slight. I'm not saying he's inept at calling run game, but he definitely leans pass. I think Chip very much leans run. So that was a really healthy marriage between the two, where one saw it one way and one kind of filled the gaps in another way. So that to me is intriguing with who does he go and hire? Because if he goes and hires somebody that is excellent and elite in the run game, that would probably be the smart thing to do, knowing what his expertise really is, and that's passing concepts and making it easy on the quarterback.
I agree. And I tell you, it's one of those things that you look at it, especially later in the year. I thought the run game kind of ramped up a little bit more. The creativity sort of came back. And I talked actually to Seth McLaughlin over the weekend, and he talked about how frustrated he was. It felt like right after he got hurt, everything started getting super creative again. And he was like, it was so much fun to watch what they were doing, and I wasn't being able to do it. It was, he said it was just kind of interesting to see how that went down. But it's going to be interesting to see where Ohio State goes, how they plug some of these vacancies, because they are massive names with a ton of experience that did a lot for that staff last year, being able to pick up a national championship. We have other coaching news in college football. Spring games looking like they could be canceled. Play callers moving back into roles where coaches are the head coach at certain spots. We'll talk about that. Andy Kennedy at 8 o'clock to talk about UAB going again tonight. Massive win over the weekend. We'll have Field Yates at 8:30 to talk Senior Bowl. How does Jalen Milroe's stock look after that? There's some other SEC quarterbacks whose stock is moving up after the Senior Bowl. And Richard Hendricks is going to be with us every Monday at 9. So he'll join us today to talk SEC hoops. A good win for Auburn and Alabama over the weekend. We'll talk to Richard about that at 9 o'clock today. It's a jam-packed show. We have not even touched the headlining stories from over the weekend yet, but we will continue that discussion on Ohio State with Bill Rabunowitz, who covers the Buckeyes next right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. $7:19 Monday, February 3rd. Jocks 94.5, glad you're with us. Massive weekend of news in college football. It just felt like it never stopped. Big weekend in college hoops as well. We'll talk about that later in the show. Andy Kennedy at 8, Richard Hendricks at 9 to talk college basketball today. Field Yates updates Senior Bowl at 8:30. But a lot of the news trickled out of Columbus, Ohio, with offensive coordinator Chip Kelly signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. That following up reports that Justin Fry is going to head to the Arizona Cardinals for the offensive line position, and Jim Knowles last week going to Penn State. So we had to call our friend Bill Rabunowitz, who covers Ohio State for the Dispatch, done it for a long time, does it better than anybody. And Bill, how expected were some of these moves from you and maybe the people around the program after picking up a national championship? We always feel like there's going to be some staff movement in college football. It's just annual almost, but to this extent, I don't know what people could have expected there in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of surprise. Probably the most curious one is Jim Knowles taking a lateral move to Penn State. That's kind of a weird one. But Chip Kelly interviewed for NFL jobs a year ago. I don't know whether he didn't get them or didn't know that he was going to get them. And when the opportunity came up to come to Ohio State and work with his protege Ryan Day, I think he thought, that's a great opportunity. They haven't worked together since the NFL back with the 49ers about a decade ago. And it worked out great. They won a national championship. But I think everyone thought, at least within, people who knew him best, kind of knew this was a short-term thing, that his aspirations long-term are to be in the NFL. It didn't go well for him as a head coach, but I think he realized from the UCLA experience that he likes just being a ball coach, doing the X's and O's and scheming and that stuff. The other stuff he can do without. And so as an NFL offensive coordinator, I think he's in his element. He came to Ohio State to win a national championship, mission accomplished. And it's, I think he just thought, okay, it's time to move on. Never going to be a better time than this. The Justin Fry thing was, it's funny, a month ago, before the playoff run, put it that way, he was on the hot seat. He had recruited very well. It was the one position at Ohio State that had not attracted the blue chip guys, and he was taking a lot of heat. Well, the playoff run and the fact that offensive line held together despite all the injuries really raised his stock. And, his contract actually expired on Friday. So I think he thought maybe this is the time to to take that jump to the NFL. And let's face it, the NFL is in a lot of ways a much more desirable job because you don't have to deal with recruiting. You don't have to deal with NIL. You don't have to deal with the transfer portal. There's a bit of stability in your life. Look, the NFL is cutthroat and you can be out of a job in a year. But the quality of life in the NFL is considerably better than it is in for college coaches.
It's such a better calendar. It makes so much more sense. It is a significant loss and one that makes a ton of sense, frankly, from Chip Kelly's perspective. But answer me this. I feel like Chip Kelly, Bill, did a great job of filling the voids where Ryan Day's an elite coach, but he does occasionally have a blind spot when it comes to the run game. And I felt like Chip Kelly really did a great job of filling that void this past season by making them lean into it a little bit more than maybe they would have if he wasn't there. So who is the guy out there that could adequately, remind Ryan Day on a regular basis, hey, don't forget the run here, don't forget the run here, let's start with the run here, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have the answer. This thing, I just sat down to eat dinner. I'd just taken a bite. When I saw the Chip Kelly thing, I was like, oh, man. So I had a cold dinner last night. So the idea, I don't know. But I don't think this caught him by surprise. I know that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day are as close as can be. There's no way in the world Chip Kelly would have blindsided Ryan Day with this. There's just no way. So Ryan Day has known about this, or at least thought this could happen for a while. Maybe that was even the agreement when Chip Kelly came last year. Who knows? I don't know that. But, there's no way. I think the Jim Knowles thing might have caught him by surprise a little bit. I would be surprised if the Chip Kelly thing did. So I think he's probably got that Rolodex in his office and he's going through it and maybe he's already making progress on it. I don't know. But, he does have to find somebody that he feels as comfortable with, or at least close to it, as Chip Kelly, because this was the first year that he had given up play calling duties, and the thinking was he was only going to do it for somebody like Chip Kelly or Bill O'Brien, who was there for a few weeks before he took the BC job, Boston College job. So I think he wants to find somebody on that level. The good thing for Ryan Day is that he's now won a national championship. He has kind of gravitas now, and he had done everything but that, and now he's got that. So I think the kind of candidate that he could attract is probably, I don't know that there's any program in the country that could attract a better candidate for an offensive coordinator job than Ohio State right now.
Do you have any updates on the defense coordinator spot? I know, obviously, Bill, there's been a little bit of time that some movement may have been taking place on that one. And then also, we haven't heard from you since then. Was that one that you anticipated as well?
I was surprised by that one. But, when you take a step back and you look at Jim Knowles' career, he is a vagabond. He just moves around every few years. He comes to a program, he fixes it, and he moves on. He is from Pennsylvania, although State College and Philadelphia might as well be worlds apart. It's like 4 or 5 hours away. I don't forget the distance. I used to live in Pennsylvania, so I should know this, but yeah, it's about 4 hours away. Culturally, it's very different. State College is in the middle of nowhere in central Pennsylvania. But I think, he grew up a Penn State fan. He probably always had an affinity for the Nittany Lions, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. I mean, $3.1 million is a lot of money. Now, Ohio State was prepared to make him the highest paid coordinator in college football, but I don't know if they were going to go that high. I don't know that kind of information, but I think it's more that he just was looking for a different challenge. And Ohio State has to almost totally rebuild their defense. They had Caleb Downs and Davis Igbinosun and Sonny Styles, but other than that, I mean, it's going to be a whole bunch of new starters. A lot of those guys have experience, but they haven't been starters yet. And I think he kind of thought, okay, mission accomplished, and I could go back and be a hero somewhere else. But it did kind of catch me off guard because he was not at the celebration at the stadium last Sunday, which I think caught people by surprise and disappointed some people. And I think the writing was on the wall then, obviously. But I asked Ryan Day then. I kind of got him off to the side, and I said, "Do you expect him back?" And he said, "Yes." Now, whether he just didn't want to say no to me and have it be reported that he was going to lose his coordinator, that's probably the reason. But it was pretty clear that Jim Knowles was on his way out of town.
Hey, Bill, other than the best defensive player returning in college football, they got to rebuild the defense. Yeah. So I don't think too many people feeling sorry for him just yet.
Exactly. And Sonny Styles is very good, and Davis Igbinosun is very good. But I tell you what, Caleb Downs is a special player. He is a special, special player.
He really is. No one's going to push back on this show. I can promise you that. He's fun to watch and did a great job last year. As far as Ohio State's prospects, I made the unfortunate mistake. I feel like it was on the podcast. I don't know, saying that Ohio State would rebuild this upcoming year. And Ohio State fans from every nook and cranny of the great state of Ohio reminded me that they don't rebuild, they reload. While I agree with that in some instances, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think looking at the pieces that were lost, including coordinators, I do think that more teams, albeit as talented as Ohio State will be, they're still going to be crazy talented, but that inexperience will be a factor in being a little more inconsistent this upcoming year. I think it's just, if it's not, man, kudos to Ryan Day. But how realistic is it that they can recreate the magic of this last year's team? Is that, I know it's expected, but is it possible?
I think it's possible. Maybe not to the same level, because look who you're losing. I mean, you're going to have like 15 draft picks. I mean, maybe more. It's insane the amount of talent that's leaving Columbus. But, everyone knew this. They came back for one, it was like the Chicago Bulls, last dance. I mean, they came back for that, and they did it. Obviously they didn't beat Michigan, and that's still, a blot on the record. But winning a national championship eclipses that, right? That's the real goal. I think that they've got some obstacles. First of all, they played a long, long season, so they've got to push back spring practice, I would think. I don't even know what they're going to do with spring practice. I mean, normally it would start in about a month. There's no way they can do that, right? There's no way. They haven't even. I don't even know if they've even started their off-season conditioning. That will be starting soon, but I'm not sure. We haven't got any information on that. I think they just are taking a deep breath right now. Ryan Day can't because he's got to hire these coaches, but. I mean, you look at who's coming back, even if, I think about a guy like Caden Curry, who's been there 3 years, would start on almost any team in the country and played behind Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. He'll be ready for a starting role, no question. Kenyatta Jackson made the impact last year. They've got guys. It's just they haven't been starters. Jermaine Matthews will fill in, will take over Denzel Burke's spot at cornerback. They have a lot of talent, but it's going to take time. And I also don't know, they've got to figure out the psychological thing of having the urgency, the natty or bust mentality. The other factors, they start with Texas. They open their season against Texas. Now it's at home, which should help, but you can have a new quarterback, a new running back, new pieces on the offensive line. You have a lot of missing pieces. So yes, it's going to take time. The good thing for Ohio State is we are now in a 12-team playoff era, and if you lose to Texas, it's not the end of the world. You can lose 2 games, and Ohio State's got 3 big games next year. Really, they've got Texas, Penn State, which will be a huge game now, but it's in Columbus, and James Franklin's record against Ohio State is awful. And then Michigan, which we all know what that's about. There's some other games that can be tricky, but those are the 3 big ones. If you win 2 of those, you're probably in. And so I think they can take a longer term view and say, okay, Julian Sayin, who's the likely quarterback, he's going to have some growing pains. Okay, if they lose to Texas, no big deal, as long as they learn from it and they make progress. And nobody's conceding that game. I mean, why would they? But it's not like you have to go 11-1 or 12-0. You can go 10-2, and even conceivably 9-3. Although I think that's a stretch. I think that'd be tough to do. But 10-2 for Ohio State that's the worst they've done. I mean, I've used this stat before, but Ohio State and Alabama until last year are the only programs in the history of college football that have gone 13 years without losing more than 2 games in a season. That's insane. That's insane.
It is. Before we let you run quickly, Bill, the Justin Friday Arizona, is that done? Is that official?
I don't know. I would assume it is. I mean, I don't cover the NFL, so I kind of trust the people who do to know better than I do. I texted Justin. He did get back to me. I think it's assumed it's a done deal. I've not heard anybody say that he's coming back, so I would think that it's soon to be official.
Yeah, very few times when these reporters say that they expect that to happen, it's probably going to happen. So we appreciate you hopping on today. Excuse me, it was kind of last minute last night, but glad you did. Great insights, and we always appreciate your time, Bill.
All right, always nice to be on with you guys. Thank you.
There you go, Bill Rabunowitz of the Dispatch. He covers the Ohio State Buckeyes, and just a team. Yes, they won a national championship, but the news just feels like it never ends with Ohio State here recently. Follow him on Twitter at BR Dispatch. Find his work at the Dispatch. Great stuff as always. How does that change the expectations for Ohio State this season? We'll discuss that. How are the expectations different for Alabama with Ryan Grubb now as the offensive coordinator? We can discuss that as well. One thing that you might need to discuss inside your home is Game Day Men's Health. If you're lacking sleep, if you lack energy, if you feel on edge, Game Day Men's Health could help you. Could be the effects of low testosterone and what they're going to do for you. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Sign up for that free consultation. You'll walk in the door, no charge. They'll give you a PSA test, testosterone test, have a baseline of where your health is right then and there. And they're just going to lay out the programs that they have that could potentially help you. Save 10% on any of those programs by using Cube when you walk in the front door. So there you go. Free consultation, free PSA, free testosterone test. Save 10% on anything when you walk in the door. They have weight loss programs as well. If the holidays were a little bit mean to you, the waistline, they can help you get some of those pounds off here early in the new year. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. You'll find out that they are a low-stress, locker room environment, not going to try to pressure you in anything that you don't want, right there at Game Day Men's Health. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Why not sign up for that free consultation, see what they can do for you today? We will discuss Ryan Grubb. We'll discuss some other coaching news that took place over the weekend next on Mac and Cube in the morning. 7:37 Monday, February 3rd, Jocks 94.5. Glad you're with us. 800-239-9569. You want to get in, talk Ryan Grubb to Alabama as the OC. Also could talk Ohio State's coaching staff. Going to be very different as Matt Zenitz reporting Justin Fry will go to the Arizona Cardinals to take the offensive line coach position. We know Jim Knowles, D coordinator, going to Penn State. Chip Kelly now going to the Raiders for $6 million a year to call plays. Also, Biff Poggi is going to be back at Michigan. Apparently going to be a part of that staff again. He was there with a lot of the Harbaugh run, so a good get for the Michigan Wolverines. Greg, Brent Venables saying that he's going to call the defense for Oklahoma this year. And we had kind of wondered about, why Zach Alley would leave, go to West Virginia. Felt a little bit odd. Brent Venables probably feeling a little bit of pressure, saying, you know what, if we're going to go down, I'm going to go down steering the ship. And he's going to be calling those plays defensively again.
And how much do you want to read into the pursuit by Oklahoma of Jim Knowles? I mean, I'm not one that's going to sit there and say, oh, well, that's why Zach Alley left. Or, that's why Venables decided to call plays on his own because he missed on Jim Knowles. All that might be true. I'm not sure what it matters. I mean, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at it like, oh, well, this is why. Does it matter? To me, I don't think it matters. It's all about, well, he's a really good defensive coordinator. That's why he got the job in the first place. Is it hard to call plays and be a head coach? Absolutely. It's a beast. I hate it. I wouldn't envy anybody that has to do it. But if you are incapable of finding someone that's going to be able to do it the way you want it at a high enough level and you trust them implicitly to do their job, then it's probably best for you to call the play. So I'm good with it. I got no problem with it whatsoever. I think Venables is excellent. And I think with a moderately inexperienced defense, that's my only concern, is they are somewhat inexperienced, relatively speaking. And that concerns me a little bit because I think that might require a little bit more hands-on coaching.
A little bit, but I think Venables there's a part of him that wants it that way a little bit at this point. The pursuit of Jim Knowles does make it a little bit odd. And you kind of wonder, okay, do you swing for the fence knowing in the back of your mind, I'll just take this over if I have to? And you bring in a different position coach to either split the defensive line, split the linebacker, split the secondary somehow. Somebody takes safeties at nickels, somebody takes corners, or you split the nickels and the corners, or you split the D tackles, D ends, however you wanted to do it. And then you can kind of just manage it from there, and you can be the guy that puts in the game plan and calls the plays. But I mean, we sat down with Brent a couple of times last year, and he went deep into how much it takes to be the head coach. And one of the reasons he liked Zach Alley was he felt like he was sort of a miniature version of himself, and did say himself that wasn't didn't cuss at the players as much. He was a little friendlier, but we talk about this. This is such a weird back and forth with college head coaches right now, because we've all sat there and said, if you're Gus Malzahn, you got there calling plays. If you're Hugh Freeze, you got there calling plays. If you're Venables, you got there calling plays. So go call plays. But we also know what that position takes right now, and the time that is required to just manage the day-to-day. Hell, just keeping guys on the roster in regular recruiting at a high school is enough, not to mention portal guys you might want to go get, not to mention everything else that's coming in front of you. It's not an easy task to put a game plan, and that's what I think people don't realize, Greg, is it's one thing to go call plays, but you got to put that game plan together because it's your plays that are going to be called. So you have to know the third down situations. You have to know the pressure situations. You have to know the red zone situations. That's on you. You put that together because you're going to call it.
Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say this. I don't know how people do it. And I really mean that, man. Like, I think it's unbelievable to think about the things that these guys are dealing with, the conversations they're having to have the day before the game with assistant. That's why everyone's hiring GMs, to just take some of that off their plate. And now all of a sudden I got to put together an offensive plan. Like, I got to know, hey, 4th and 1 plus 36-yard line. What's our play? I need to be living it. Like when I was playing, and I don't know how you felt, but like I was an extension of Jim McElroy. I was an extension of Brian Schottenheimer. I was an extension of Jay Gruden, like all the offensive coordinators that you have as a quarterback, all of us collectively, whether it's 2 of us, 3 of us, 4 of us. I sat in a quarterback room with Mark Sanchez, Mark Brunell, Kevin O'Connell, who was on with us in 2011, and me. And our whole life for a 7-month period revolved around what plays are going to be called at what time. So as a quarterback, you're an extension of the offensive coordinator, and you have to live it. I mean, live it. Down in, down out, your game plan on that week, it has to be, you have to be able to speak that language. You have to be able to think it before the situation presents itself, and you have to have a plan for every possible situation. And if you don't have a plan, you have a backup plan. And you know if it goes to 8 overtimes, I have 8 2-point plays potentially available. And if we need to make adjustments and tweaks, we'll make adjustments and tweaks. Like, I don't know how you can call plays and be the best version of yourself as a head coach. I don't know how you do it, but like you said, if that's your best skill, if that's why you have the job, also, how can I tell you not to do that? You know what I mean? And if you're in a situation like Hugh Freeze, if you're in a situation like Brent Venables, where you're expected to win and win now, like, you need to have a good year. Man, it's hard for me to delegate and bet on somebody else when I might be the best man for the job.
You want that? You want that to be on you. You don't want to put that in somebody else's hands, and you want as much of your success or failures to be in your control. And when you have, it's like we've said before, these coaches are past confident. I don't want to say arrogant because that's a negative connotation on that, but they are beyond confident in believing that they can get things right and they can make things work. So why wouldn't you do it yourself? Other than the time constraints, which are a lot to manage. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where those go and how those play out, because, man, a lot of change coming up in coaching circles this season. With Poggi there now back at Michigan, Chip Kelly's going to the Raiders, offensive line coach out of Ohio State, Justin Frye to the Arizona Cardinals, Jim Knowles going to Penn State. Also just now coming up, Tennessee special teams coach Mike Eckler is going to go back to Nebraska to join Matt Rule's staff there. I thought Eckler did a really nice job. I know he's good in recruiting as well for Tennessee, brought some juice to that staff, so that'll be different for the Vols this year as well. So it feels a little bit late in the cycle, Greg, but I think with the extended season and the NFL's season to continue to extend the last couple of years, this is just kind of where it is. You're going to have to get used to things happening a little bit later than normal.
And I don't think that it's something to be concerned about. I think the calendar is screwed up as it is. So some of these decisions might have been made earlier, but because of the calendar and the portal being open, like, let's be real. I mean, guys take their time in some cases. Hey, recruiting's done. It's February now. Now we can make moves. So is it above board? Yeah, kind of. But then again, what isn't? You know, we have teams canceling spring games because they're scared of tampering. Like, I mean, it's amazing to me where we're at in the sport, but it's what makes it fun.
It's what makes it fun, what makes it unique, and what makes us all pay attention to it. So we'll talk more about it on the other side. Tell you about your CBD store quickly. If you are lacking sleep, if you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, the Trim by SunMed is on the shelves now. Appetite suppressant over the counter there at your CBD store can help you get a couple of the pounds off. If maybe you're walking around achy, you feel arthritis, the joints aren't feeling great, well, they have topical creams, they have gummies that can help with arthritis for you, really, or your pet as well. We've had multiple pets in my household that have suffered from arthritis that your CBD store has answers for to help them sort of get around and get up and down the stairs just a little bit better. Largest brick and mortar CBD retailer on planet Earth. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. They have the stamp seal on their products. So stop by one of their 3 locations today. See what your CBD store can do for you. Skincare, gut health for you or your pet. Your CBD store has answers. Maybe better focus throughout the course of the day. They can help you with that. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleaver, Trustful just off 459. Your CBD store where good health hits home. All right, top 3 coming up on the other side. It will revolve around coordinators in college football. We'll give you that next on Mac and Cube in the morning. top 3 for today. I'll go ahead and throw it out and then have a little business to take care of at 7:49 Monday, February 3rd. Who are the top 3 head coaches in college football that you would want to hire as a play caller that don't currently call their own plays, either side of the football? Who would those be?
Love that. What a great top 3.
It could be a deep list. It could go long, and then there's going to be a little confusion also of guys who maybe do or maybe don't.
We're going to ask the question a couple times, like, wait, do they?
It took me a little bit of thinking about, does that person, how involved are they still? Do they still? And don't really know on some of those. But either way, we'll get to it here in just a moment. Before we do that, tell our listeners about Family Care Dental.
Well, Family Care Dental is the urgent care office where you can be seen the same day. They do a great job being able to get you in. They can also get you in on Fridays and Saturdays, which makes it real easy on me. You know, schedules are crazy. So getting in and getting quality dental care is always difficult. They have 5 locations to make it easy on you. Hoover, Fultondale, Homewood, and Alabaster, now open and trustful as well. Call Family Care Dental today at 874-9605. That's Family Care Dental, 874-9605.
All right, so just right out of the gate, my initial thoughts went to Dan Lanning, number 1, and I honestly don't know how involved he is in the defensive day-to-day play calling.
He gives it all.
I don't think he does it, but that's why he would be number 1 on my list, because I loved his defenses at Georgia, and people will say, well, Kirby and this, and I think Kirby hands off more than people believe a lot of the times. Number 2 for me would be Jonathan Smith at now Michigan State, formerly Oregon State. Do you have an idea how involved he is, Greg? I
think he calls it.
So I'll mark him off my list then. I wasn't. He doesn't count. I
think he calls it offensively. I'm not 100%, but I think he does.
I did have Marcus Freeman number 3. Now this could change going into this season. If you could get in a situation like Oklahoma was just in, where he could come back and say, you know what, I'm going to step right back in there. I'm going to manage that. And with Jonathan Smith off, I would go. I didn't have A&M this year, but I don't think Elko's calling it.
No, he
told me himself that he wanted to let that go, and he didn't think he was going to have time to do it. So he would then be number 3 on my list, which one of those could change. Interesting that they're all on defense, but most of the offensive guys I could think of are actually calling their plays. So
doing it, yeah.
That's where I would be if Jonathan Smith were off the list. I would go Elko, Lanning, and Marcus Freeman.
So quick question. So if these guys chose to call plays, they would be the top 3 or the top 3 guys that don't call plays?
No. Just top 3 that you would want to hire to call plays for you if they were going to be removed as a head coach and now just a play caller for you.
Okay. Just play calling. Number 1, Kirby Smart.
Yeah. That are not calling it now, by the way, which that's correct. Another outlier.
Kirby Smart does not call it now. I'll take him coaching my defense any day of the week.
It's a good one.
Any day of the week. Lane Kiffin is number 2. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. He's not calling. Don't you start.
Some gray area there.
Don't you start.
Definitely some gray area.
Oh, stop it.
Charlie calls most of it, but there's some involvement.
Fair enough. Man, the rest of these are tough, because you've already kind of hit a couple. I'll go Ryan Day. Like, I think Ryan Day is a really good play caller. And I know that while he's probably a little heavy pass lean, but he'd be number 3 for me. I love the Dan Lanning one. Since you already took him, he would have made it. But since you already took him, that's fine. We'll take Ryan Day.
Damian?
Does Josh Heupel call plays?
I think so.
So yes. Is it like a Lane thing where it's a strong suggestion that we should run this?
I'm pretty sure he's calling it.
Okay.
There are different conversations around it, but I think he called it.
Okay, yeah, I have Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, and Lane Kiffin as well.
One that I might throw out, and we don't know because we haven't seen him as a head coach yet, we Brennan Marion. I love the go-go offense, and our head coach at Sacramento State. I would assume, Greg, that he's going to call it. I mean, you kind of go to Sacramento State, you got to kind of do your own thing. I don't think you're going to have this, army of assistants and, analysts and different guys who can do a lot of different things for you. But he may fall into that category if for some reason he wasn't. But it did feel like there were a lot more defensive guys. I mean, you go down the list of offensive guys that may qualify. I mean, obviously Lincoln Riley's calling his own plays. I don't know I imagine Gus is going to call it this year for Florida State. So Norvell could fall into that category.
There's no way that Gus would leave a head coaching job to go be a coordinator in title.
We know how that thing's gone in the past. I think Kalen DeBoer would be a guy on my list that I would consider. I mean, he could go call it right now and be fantastic at it. But I mean, Billy Napier's calling his own plays. Freeze has stepped back in where he's going to call plays. So it's like most of the offensive guys are already doing it. Kenny Dillingham's calling plays. So it does. Jeff Levy's calling plays. It feels like there's a lot more offensive guys out there that are actually calling it than there are defensive guys right now.
Yeah. And I'm not sure that that's super surprising. Let's be real. I think offensive play calling is more fun.
It is. I'm assuming Dan Mullen's calling his own play.
No doubt.
Yeah. Yes.
0% chance.
That is a lock of the century. Yes. There's never been a bigger lock than that. But I really don't know if there's a whole lot of. I mean, if you were an offensive guy, Cole. I mean, I don't know how much play calling experience you would ever have, but like that'd be a hard thing to give up, man. Calling plays offensively is really, really flipping fun.
Well, too, and I think defense is so much more reactionary that I think you're trying to get things in a little bit later defensively, and with it being the head coach, it's just a little bit more difficult. Also, I think you can live more on structure defensively and show different things and do different things in different areas, and it's not certain overhauls of certain aspects of the defense. So you can allow somebody else to do that when you go in and say, hey, this is pretty much the groundwork of what we want to do for this game plan. Then you let that person do it. Offense, I think you just can't halfway an offensive play caller. I mean, you can give heavy influence on defense and then have the understanding of what it's going to look like for most of the game. Offense, you got to be there in it, and you got to live it in game and pre-game and all week in practice if you're going to be successful with it. So it's just very different. But that's our top 3 for today. Going to talk some college hoops next with Andy Kennedy, UAB head football coach, right after this on Jocks 94.5. 8 a.m. Monday, February 3rd on Jox 94.5. Watch live on YouTube. Search JOX 945 each and every morning, 7 to 10 a.m. Actually, 6 to 7 and 10 to 2 as well. As you can get Morning Jocks, 3-man front live on YouTube as well. Listen online, joxfm.com. The app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Excited to welcome in Andy Kennedy. First visit to the show this basketball season. Not sure how that's happened, but the football offseason sometimes takes us off guard, Coach, and we get a little bit caught up, but we should be paying attention to your basketball team. You got another one coming up tonight. The schedule a little bit different with some of the weekend and then quick follow-up games. I know last year it was kind of some of the travel with back-to-back games. How has the schedule, just from a travel perspective, with a little bit of difference, been for you guys this year?
Hey, guys, good morning. Yeah, it's just unusual. Since we joined the American Conference, it's just all based on TV windows. Tonight's a national TV opportunity. Quick turn, Saturday, Monday, first time I've done that in my 5 years here at UAB. Thankfully, we played well Saturday, and we don't have to travel. North Texas, on the other hand, lost a heartbreaker on Saturday, and then they have to travel yesterday in order to play tonight. So we've got to take advantage of home floor. We need the Blazer faithful out loud and proud and continue as we start the second half of conference play. It's a huge opportunity for us.
Hey, K, buddy, it's great to be with you, man. Thanks for joining us. Been watching, gosh. Some boys are into hoops right now, and they are like big Blazer fans. They keep calling y'all the Dragons. I don't know why. My 3-year-old thinks you guys are the coolest team of all time. So keep up the good work, buddy. It's been a blast to watch. But what do you want to focus on here down the stretch so you can finish on a high note?
Well, thank you. For us, we've gotten better as the season has progressed. It's taken us a little while with some of the new guys, integrating them in and understanding, and them having an understanding with the consistency with which you have to perform in order to be successful at this level. Defensively is our biggest issue. It's been our biggest issue all year. We have not been able to guard at a consistent level. It's been a problem. And then perimeter shooting. So a couple of those together, and it's the reason we're sitting here with more losses than we had anticipated coming into the season to this point. Our perimeter shooting has seemed to settle in. We're shooting at about 38% from 3 in league play, which is a good number for us. Now it's all about defensively playing with force, trying to stay connected, and doing a better job on that end of the floor.
Coach, sometimes it doesn't matter what you're shooting from the perimeter when you have a Yoxel Lindenborg that does the things that he does. 10 to 16 Saturday, another double-double, 22 and 14. We had a lot of conversations with you after last season, in the offseason, just about some of his suitors and mentally where he was, what he meant to your program. Sometimes it's rare to have a guy with the expectation that he had to come in and maybe exceed it, which I feel like he's done this year. I'm going to be real. I don't study every kid from every league. I don't know if there's a more underrated player in college basketball than this young man and what he's doing for your squad this year.
Well, Cole, he's a tremendous kid. What you see as a player, which is consistent double-doubles, I think he's third in the nation in double-doubles. He just came off of we had a situation where he had his best game, I think, as a Blazer, as we bounce back from a disappointing outing at Memphis. We go to Tulsa, and we had a couple guys not play to their standard, and he just led us. It was his most dominant performance, tap to buzzer, and leading us to a double-digit road win and a must-win situation for us. He then comes back. He was under the weather, was not able to practice. We didn't even know if he was going to be able to go against Charlotte because of his physical ailment. Came in. He hadn't had any solid food in over 36 hours. Had an IV just to kind of keep him flowing a little bit. Told me before the game he was ready to go, and he goes for another double-double, and he leads us in another dominant performance. Tremendous kid. We're very fortunate to have him at UAB. We talked about it last year. If he wanted to enter the portal and go to the highest bidder, we would have had zero chance to keep him. It never entered his mind. He's a Blazer. He wanted to be here, and he was committed to what we were doing. We're very fortunate to have him. He's playing like a preseason player of the year should play, and he's got to lead us down the stretch.
To watch Andy. It's just always been so fast, so exciting, so energetic. And for those that haven't taken a peek this year, like, highly recommend it. It is a really exciting brand of basketball with tremendous tempo. Have you noticed that as you've continued to kind of ingrain yourself and put down these roots here at UAB the last few years, and with the success you guys have had making the tournament and making some runs, have you found that more and more people are maybe reaching out to you and saying, hey, I'd like to play in that style of attack as compared to when you were starting out?
I wish that was the case, G. Now they're just asking how much money we have in a collective. Times have changed, my friend. You know, it is such a transient business now. It has gotten to be so about transactional other than relationships, which is the way that I was brought up in the business. You know, we were able to get a kid like Trey Jemison or Jelly Walker or Quan Jackson, Yaxel Lindenborg, and all those kids came because of a collective body of work, a proof of concept as to how we play and we can be successful, as you said, and then relationship-based. You know, I've been in this game over 30 years and have developed a lot of close relationships with people throughout the country, and that's how we got all of those kids, and I'm afraid those days are behind us.
Andy Kennedy, head coach of the UAB Blazers, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. 96-78 win against Charlotte on Saturday, and they'll go again tonight. You mentioned that North Texas team that had a tough trip and now going to have to come to Birmingham, 8 p.m. on ESPN2. When I saw kind of the back-to-back, I was like, yeah, we'll get the boys out there. We'll check this thing out on Monday, but 8 p.m. a little late as far as the start time goes for the first grader, coach, so not going to make it in person. What do we need to know about North Texas? What has to be taken away? What has to be accomplished by your basketball team to get another win tonight?
Well, playing North Texas is like going to the dentist, and I hadn't been to the dentist in a while, so maybe this will be good for me. But you know, when you sit down in that chair and they open up your mouth and all those strange sounds are beaming throughout the office, and he's looking in your mouth, and you're just hoping he doesn't find anything. But regardless of whether it's a good visit or a bad visit, it's an uncomfortable visit. Can you relate?
A little bit.
Yes.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
And so that's what it's like playing North Texas. There's 364 Division I basketball teams, and they're 360th in the country in tempo. They squeeze the air out of possessions. You've got to be really disciplined. They're tough. They're physical. They've done an incredible job. Grant McCaslin, who was there when I first got this job 5 years ago, is now off to Texas Tech and doing a tremendous job at Texas Tech. And his longtime assistant, Ross Hodge, has just taken the mantle and continued this style of play. You've got to be tough. You've got to be physical. They're not going to give you anything free, and everything is going to have to be earned on both ends.
And finally, Coach, state of the league. I think the possible expansion, the conversations that you've been in the SEC, you've been around, you've seen a lot. Help me understand if there is further expansion to the college basketball field. I, for one, have always aligned with give the automatic bid. If we go to 96, give the automatic bid to the regular season champion of every conference. And then play your conference tournament, and that person gets a bid too. And if they're going to seed it, let's at least seed it with champions and make the regular season matter again, as opposed to exclusively the teams that win their conference title. I don't like teams under 500 that are there as a 15 seed. Doesn't do much for me. So if you were to make some recommendations to the committee, if they do expand further, what would be some of those recommendations?
No, I agree with you, Greg. I think the regular season champion is the one that has earned it in conference play over about a 3-month period. I think they're deserving of the automatic bid. And I'm of this. I think I don't know if we'll ever get to 96. I think you know, somewhere, and I don't have the exact number, but if they could add 12 to 14 teams, if they could get in the upper 70s, low 80s, it might be a good number. And I know they won't do this. It's just like the championship games in college football. It's just such a big money maker that conference tournaments will not go away. But I wouldn't care if they did. If you could expand the tournament. I really worry about the UABs of the world. You know, in this new transformational age, as I said, transfer portal, NIL, resources, we're just getting further and further behind the people that we want to be in competition with. And as a result, I worry about us getting squeezed like the SEC. You know, as you said, I was a part of that league for 12 years. at Ole Miss, and I have never seen the league so good top to bottom in basketball than this year. So rightfully so, on Selection Sunday, I would not be surprised to see 10, 11, maybe 12 teams out of that league get into the 68-team field. But what does that do to the quote-unquote mid-majors of the world? Puts you in a position where obviously you've got to win the automatic like we had to last year in order to put yourself in a position to have a chance to dance. And there's so many good mid-major programs that historically have made runs in that tournament, you know, i.e. a VCU back in the day to a George Mason. There's a lot of great, intriguing stories, which I think are compelling for the average viewer in March Madness, and I certainly don't want to see that go away. But with these super conferences now, I'm afraid the mid-majors are going to continue to get squeezed.
Coach, before we let you go, you brought up earlier that you guys have gotten better throughout the course of the year. And Andy Kennedy, UAB head coach, with us on the Buyers Right Hotline. What does it say about your team that a guy like Danger can get a career high in points over the weekend, and it's this late in the season? You don't expect a lot of guys to be having their best games of the year and their season high in points against a team like Memphis this late in the season, and just shows you that different guys stepping up in different ways this late.
Yeah, we need contributions from a number of guys. You know, we were the preseason selection to win the league, and I think the reason for that was the success that we had last year and making a run and capturing the AAC tournament championship and getting back to the NCAA tournament, as you said earlier, for the second time in 3 seasons. And so we bring back 4 starters off that team and 5 guys in our top 8. So there was an anticipation that in this age of transfer portal, we had some continuity coming back. Fortunately for us, we didn't play as well early. We lost a lot of close games. All of our non-league losses were a 1 or 2 possession game in the last minute to 90 seconds of the game. And as I said, our inability to be consistent defensively hurt us, and our inability to shoot the ball from the perimeter was really, really a problem. I think we've corrected some of those, or we've certainly made improvements. But as a result, we're starting to find ourselves. Yaxel last year at this time, people were just beginning to understand that he was a good college basketball player. This year, he came in as a preseason All-American in a number of publications, and as a result, he was atop the scouting report for the opponent, and that took him some getting used to as well. He's a pleaser. By nature, he kind of wants to blend in, and I tell him after every game and before every game, hey, man, Batman can't blend in. You got to lead us. And as a result, I think he has finally gotten comfortable in that leadership role, and he's really playing tremendous basketball. We need his cohorts to play to their best version of self, and if they do so, I think this team's really got a run in it.
Coach, we appreciate the time, man. Good luck tonight. We'll have you back again soon, and I always love watching your basketball team. Love talking to you about your basketball team as well.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Andy Kennedy, head coach of the UAB Blazers, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. They have North Texas tonight, ESPN2, 8 p.m. You can check that out. 96-78 over the weekend. They took down Charlotte. That was on Saturday, so a quick turnaround. Lindenborg, 22-14 in that game. Blazers shot 57% from the floor, just 4 of 17 from 3. However, they were even better against Charlotte defensively on the perimeter. They shot 3 of 17 from behind the three-point line. Out-rebounded Charlotte 40-23 in that game. Lindenborg on the season, by the way, AK talking about just some of the areas that he is great. He mentioned 4th in the nation in double-doubles with 14. He was right there. He's 8th in the nation in total rebounds with 228, tied for 44th in blocks with 37, 29th in the nation in field goal percentage, and 10th in the nation in total rebounds per game at 10.4. So not a bad season for Yaxel Lindenborg there for the UAB Blazers, and they'll get going again tonight on ESPN2, 8 p.m. You can watch that one. Wanted to take Judge to that one, but not the 8 p.m. tip. Sorry, not going to.
Can't do
that. We would pay for that on Tuesday and not going to risk that one. So you're never going to.
We've watched many of if they had quarters. We've watched many a quarters in our house in college basketball. We usually that under 12 timeout. Yeah, that's when we shut it down.
One and done. Yeah, get in there. We'll dial in on a little bit more college basketball on the other side. Auburn, Alabama had nice wins over the weekend. But if you're looking to dial into a Valentine's Day gift, GMAC, where should you go?
That'd be Bromberg's. Bromberg's is the very best place in the community to go and shop for special items that are going to be potentially in your family for multiple generations. And right now you can go and get a Vietri hibiscus glass vase, which are beautiful. I mean, these are handmade. They are created in Italy. Is a beautiful vase that looks like a flower in and of itself, but you can get a free bouquet of fresh flowers for your Vietri vase on February 13th and 14th if you go by Mountain Brook or the Summit. They'll be at the Summit on February 13th. They'll be at Mountain Brook on February 14th. And you can get a gold-plated heart charm to tie around your vase with a personalized engraved monogram name or special date. That will be available on location at the Summit and at Mountain Brook as well. So go and see them. It's Bromberg's in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit.
All right, when we come back, more college basketball. Why Auburn was able to get that win at Ole Miss and how Alabama handled Georgia. Next on Mac and Cube in the morning. $8:19 Monday, February 3rd, Jocks 94.5. It is still Super Bowl week, but a lot of college football coaching changes taking place. We've mentioned Kalen DeBoer is going to have a new offensive coordinator this year at Alabama as Ryan Grubb has been hired. Ohio State is going to have massive turnover with their college football staff. Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator, going to the Raiders. DC Jim Knowles had already gone to Penn State, and Justin Fryer, the offensive line coach, going to the Arizona Cardinals. Michigan's going to add Biff Poggi to their staff. Former Charlotte head coach, been on the staff before. That's going to take place. Brent Venables is going to call the defense for Oklahoma this year. Tennessee special teams coach Mike Eckler is going to go back to Nebraska as well. So a lot of change happening, a lot of movement taking place. And we have one head coach in college football saying he might not play a spring game this year. Why? We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. We'll discuss it. But I want to get to a little bit more college basketball from over the weekend. GMAC Alabama 90-69 over the Georgia Bulldogs. They get to 19-3 on the season, 53% from the floor, 11-26 from behind the three-point line. Mark Sears back over 20 points again as he finishes with 20. So that whole situation feels like it has evened itself out and not going to be a problem for the Crimson Tide moving forward. Just a good win, fifth straight win since they scored that season-low 64 in a loss to Missouri. Sears is 20 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, makes it his 63rd career 20-point game. That's the most among active players in college basketball. So you look also Alabama, they've won their last 3 home games by 20 plus against Georgia, and Georgia now 1-5 in true road games this season, 0-5 in SEC road games. So 27 straight loss to an AP top 5 team for the Georgia Bulldogs. Not great for them, but good for Alabama as they continue to march forward.
Great performance, dominant performance. And look, Georgia's come back to earth a little bit after a great start to the season, but it's a good win. I mean, any win right now in the SEC is a good win. So take it knowing that it was convincing and feel good about what it is that we witnessed. Yeah,
it's listen, you mentioned UAB's brand of basketball. We know Alabama's brand, what they're going to do, how they're going to play. Also, with UAB, I mentioned with Coach Kennedy, just different players stepping up this late in the season. I feel a little bit of that with Alabama also. It's not just Mark Sears having to go out, get 20 points and facilitate the offense. It's different players can step up in different ways. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not consistency there. That doesn't mean that there's not certain guys that are showing up night in, night out and giving you exactly what you need. But it doesn't just have to be in dominant fashion, I don't feel like, from one or two guys in the same way for Alabama to be able to go out and be successful. Of course, we've seen Grant Nelson almost a double-double night in, night out. Had another one over the weekend, 16 and 10 for him. But Jaron Stevenson has shown up at different points in times. Aiden Holloway has been great. Diabate's played his role. So there are different portions of this team I feel like that can step up in different ways at different times. Obviously going to be dependent on the opponent and the game plan, but something you also have to feel pretty good about with this Alabama team.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways for them to be able to beat you. And I think what's amazing is that they're still growing. They're still getting better. I think they're really starting to kind of settle in, and guys are playing in different roles than they were last year, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but guys are occupying different responsibilities. And I think there was a little bit of a transition, maybe early in the season where it was a little tough for some people. Maybe Mark Sears is included in that, knowing that he was being asked to be a little bit more of a distributor when compared to what it was in the past. So I think that's something worth noting, but I'm pretty optimistic about the fact that this team has not even come close to scratching its ceiling yet. Just when I watch them, I feel like there's more there, which is really encouraging and should have you excited.
Absolutely. There was a lot to be excited about for Auburn fans in Oxford over the weekend. An 8-3 run late, kind of capped it. Baker Mazara, a couple of threes late, helped out. It's a Hyde Pettiford dunk. Once again, you just watch what he does, and you just can't believe that the kid's 6'1", doing the things that he does. Pretty ridiculous. But Auburn gets that win, 92-82, another road win in conference for Bruce Pearl's team, which just remarkable to think about in this league, how tough it is to go play on the road, the type of opponents that you're playing. A little frustration there from the Ole Miss staff late, but nonetheless, Bruce Pearl thought that it was Auburn's best road win of the season. So Bruce Pearl also, and it's interesting that this happened in Oxford because we've had the conversation with Lane Kiffin about kind of drawing up plays and how sometimes he comes up with things. And we asked Jackson Dart about it, Greg, and Jackson Dart said, he's like, sometimes I think he calls things that he called in a different offense, and he'll give us words and numbers that we don't use. And he's like, I'll look in the headset and I'll kind of look over and be like, hey coach, we don't have that. Like, that's not a thing we have. He's like, sometimes I'll just go out and try to run something different. He said, but what's the closest he's been to just drawing one up in to date? And he's like, oh no, he's come over there on the whiteboard and literally drawn up a new play in game. And we didn't have it. We didn't carry it. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're putting this in. We're going to call it this. And we've run it in game before. Bruce Pearl also in Oxford over the weekend, maybe a little bit of similar situation for his Tigers. How much fun would it be to play like that? I mean, you got a head coach that obviously is going to push you, is obviously going to lean on you, but at times also Greg just going to say, screw it, man. Like, let's just run this. It looks good to me. Yeah. I think we can make it work.
It's just amazing to me. Millions upon millions of dollars are on the line. These guys they're chasing a championship. They're chasing a run. And you know what? Give me the whiteboard, guys. We haven't done this. We haven't practiced this. We haven't run through this, but you know what? All right, here, you're going to be this number 2, and you're going to do this. You're going to do this. All right, got it? Ready, break.
Let's go.
Like, I love it. I love it. I mean, the same thing that we used to do back in the day and drawing up plays and trying to tell each other what to do when we're sitting there in the huddle in the front yard. Like, I love it. It should be like that. Like, free-flowing, have fun with it. There's a million games. Like, keep the guys on their toes and have some fun with it.
Yeah, the biggest difference is Bruce Pearl just drawing some expletive up, very different than us just drawing some expletive up. A little bit more knowledge behind that one than ours.
Based on some of the plays that we have drawn up, I'm going to be completely honest. There are very few things that I'm taking in the front yard that are intermediate and or efficient passes. We're going for the jugular. We'll throw 4 straight shot plays. I don't care. What do you think I'm worried about it? I bet Bruce is a little bit more methodical with how he's drawing things up.
Just a little bit. So 13 straight wins for Bruce Pearl's team now. That's tied for the second longest active winning streak behind Duke's 14. The school's longest win streak since they won 19 straight in 2021 and 2022. Auburn has their 5th win streak of 12 or more games. These are the type of things with Bruce Pearl that just keep coming out and just kind of over and over and over again. You get these like first time that happened in school history or only happened twice in school history or different things like that. 5th win streak of 12 or more games since Bruce Pearl took over. From 2001, that season, to the 2013-14 season, Auburn had 0 win streaks of 12 or more games. Bruce has 5.
0.
Bruce has 5. So 13 years before he arrived, none. 5 since he's been there. 8th win versus a ranked team.
What the heck was Barkley doing when he was in school?
Well,
Goodness gracious.
Nothing between 2000 and 2013, actually. But, yeah, he got some stuff done when he was there, making some things happen. 8th win against a ranked team this season. 5th SEC team the last 20 seasons to win. 8 against AP-ranked opponents. 11 straight conference wins for Bruce Pearl's team. And also should be pointed out, Janai Broom, 20 and 12, 13th double-double this season. Tied for the most in D1, most in the SEC, after also missing a couple of games there with the ankle injury. And Ole Miss moves to, just feel like this should be pointed out, 0-16 all-time against AP number 1 teams. The 16 losses are tied for the most by any team without a win versus an AP number 1 team ever. They missed a season-high 11 free throws in the game as well. 82 points, most in a loss this season for Ole Miss. So they can hang their hat on that one and be proud of that from over the weekend. So you feel good about it for Ole Miss, Greg, that they scored their most points in a loss this year? Is that something that you move forward with? Be happy about?
Are you suggesting that I celebrate participation trophies? You're the bad box score guy.
And we got a doozy for you coming up. We got a doozy coming up for you a little bit later.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Back again.
Ole Miss
here's a
also
bad
just
box
won.
score.
I feel like it needed to be pointed out. Ole Miss 1-5 against ranked teams this season.
Whoa. Why do you got to say that?
It's a statistic that's accurate.
It's fact.
But why?
Is that not what we give? We
feel-
give facts and opinions on the show. Two things. We point out facts. We point out opinions. And those are the two things that we have. We can't offer you much else. Sometimes humor.
That's all we got.
Sometimes guests. Sometimes top threes. Other than that, we have facts and opinions. That's all we have. So I just give you factual information on Ole Miss. So they're also 1-5 when they've allowed.
I don't know why you got to make it like that on them. I just feel like that's really unfair.
Ole Miss
really
also
unfair.
1-5 when they allowed more than 70 points this year. So what? They're statistics from the game. There's no difference in saying 82-92 they lost. What's the difference?
They don't. I'm not sure I can answer that.
Auburn only trailed
All
for
I
3
know
minutes
is
and
that
4 seconds in the game. Another
I
statistic
really
from
like
the game.
going to Oxford,
It's a stat
Mississippi.
from the game. I'm just giving you stats
I
from
like
the
going
game.
to Oxford, Mississippi, and having a nice time.
do
You
too.
like going scorched earth.
No,
That's the difference. It's fine.
Go out there and hang out with Nick Weaver, my guy Blue Delta, or John Currents over their Big Bad Breakfast. I love Oxford. Not a lot of Oxford loves me, but I love Oxford.
No.
It's great. I just give you statistics from a game. I don't understand why you're upset about stats from a game, like an actual game that took place.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me for doing my research and homework on a game that took place, and I let you know what happened in the game. If you don't want to know what happened in the game, go down the hall and listen to talk. I'm sure that they got gas taxes they're talking about down there.
Heck yeah, gas taxes rip.
You know, the
I
price.
want to talk.
Okay.
I guarantee you they're taking calls on the price of eggs right now.
Absolutely.
You can go in there and get as mad as you want about it. I give you statistics from the game that are factual of something that actually took place and happened in the world of sports, and you're frustrated about it. I can't help you.
Why
I
am I
don't know.
frustrated? I didn't even say anything.
You're getting upset. I'm giving you
mad at
factual
you.
information on a team. One got their teeth kicked in. Another won another game in a row.
Oh boy,
Plain and simple.
That's exactly how it went.
You guys can't be mad at me.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
Just sitting here.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
I'm just an observer.
Who are
from
you
a
guys,
distance
by
here.
the way? There's no guys mad
The
at me
people
listening to the show.
listening
I feel like
in
the people
Oxford.
appreciate my statistical information on said game
Absolutely.
that Auburn won by 10 on the road
All barn.
against a top 25 team that might not be in the top 25 anymore.
Oh boy,
I mean, it's a fact.
Where have I lied?
no one
Nowhere.
said you lied.
No, nowhere.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't feel like there's anything to be frustrated about.
I'm not frustrated.
Nobody is.
Who's somebody?
Chris Beard.
Well, he was at the end of the
He
game.
was.
that
He definitely
doesn't
was.
count.
At the end of the
Who else is frustrated? Anybody else?
Don't feel like they should be. Well, Todd Pettiford's not. Janai
No,
Broome
not at all.
isn't.
No.
Bruce Pearl's not.
Nope.
Bruce Pearl's literally making up plays on the sideline.
Exactly.
Literally
I feel like he was having a good
making
day.
them up,
He had a good day. Had a good day.
drawing them up.
Not a good day if you got the flu. And we are in the middle of flu season. Make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. Removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. 100 times more effective than standard air filters. 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com. Back to college football coaching movement and why a spring game might not take place at a certain Big Ten school. Next on Mac and Cube in the morning. $8:37. Monday, February 3rd, right here on Jocks 94.5. Going to talk Senior Bowl with Field Yates here in just a moment. Maybe get a little Super Bowl talk in as well. Before we do that, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Polar Bear Services.
Polar Bear Service is the best. I love when I call Wes and the guys, knowing that they're going to take great care of me, knowing that things will be totally squared away without any concerns whatsoever. I always am very grateful to the service that I receive from Polar Bear Services, the Weston and Company. They can come out. They can get you taken care of with your HVAC. They can get you taken care of with your electrical and your plumbing as well. But right now with flu season rolling around, it's important to keep your home healthy during flu season. That's why they can do duct cleaning. And they also have things that they can install that actually kill particles, bacteria particles in your home. So it's more ventilated and that your air that you're breathing in your home is cleaner. So remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heat, or air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. It's 205-497-BEAR. That's 497-BEAR.
Before we get to Field Yates of ESPN to talk Super Bowl and Senior Bowl, into the Twitter feed, Russell Terry, at rterry740, tweets in Cal College, ! Barner, ! At Cole Cubelic, at Greg McElroy, at Mac and Cube. Believe Russell Terry listening on Jocks 740 there in Montgomery. Let's go to Field Yates now on the Buyers Right hotline from ESPN. Down at the Senior Bowl over the weekend. We'll get to Super Bowl in just a moment, Field. There was really some movement, specifically with quarterbacks down in Mobile this week. I feel like Jalen Milroe kind of up, down, up. I want to get your thoughts on where he ended when you left Mobile, of where his stock you feel like was maybe going in and where it was coming out.
Yeah, I'd say the probably, guys, and great to be on with you. The stock is similar to where it was going in, but it's much clearer for those that had not really seen Jalen prior to this past week, which side of the Jalen Milroe line that they're on. And what I mean by that is Jalen is going to be very much a beauty in the eye of the beholder quarterback prospect. I think we all know the significant upside that he brings as a dynamic runner, 20 rushing touchdowns this past season, more rushing than passing touchdowns, the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in Alabama history. I think Greg might have been right behind him, but it might have also been Jalen Hurts. I forget which one he surpassed, but I digress. On the other hand, Jalen might go back-to-back reps where he throws a seed over the middle to Jalen Royals from Utah State, and then he kind of one-hops a ball on the next play on like a 15-yard dig to another wide receiver, and you're saying to yourself, which of those two are you going to get more consistently at the NFL level? You're going to get the all-pro throws, you're going to get the throws that lead to incompletion. So I would say that these past, let's call it a week, the past week, probably treated Jalen well in the eyes of some, and others left with some question marks there. That being said, I felt personally by the end of the week like about where I expected going into the week. And, you know, I'm not just saying that to cater to a crowd that obviously knows Jalen well and probably has some deep affinity for him. But, you know, I think the kid this is a great kid. He is a terrific dude. And it's pretty obvious when you spend some time around him and see him on the field this past week that his spirit for football is really good. So if he's willing to be patient, which I imagine he will be, he's obviously dealt with some ups and downs during his time at Alabama, being benched, you know, just 2 seasons ago and coming back and playing great football. I think there is some developmental upside there that I still think a team is going to be willing to invest a pretty high draft pick on.
What do you make of the misses though? That's what I think is so shocking is like the misses are really big misses. It's one thing if you miss a throw, touch low, you hit a guy in the kneecap as opposed to the face mask. I can live with that. But one hopping a throw is one that you don't see very often in the NFL, you know, in a routes on air situation. You know, that's just really rare. So like, I mean, I saw it I had guys that I was on the team with that were really consistent throwing it and they didn't last long, but we're talking about a, you know, possible top 10 pick here. I feel like people are going to love him, but a polarizing prospect, man, I'm not sure there's been a more polarizing prospect in recent years. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Here's what I would say. You know, it's January 28th? I'm sorry, February 3rd. Geez, guys, I've totally lost track of time. I was thinking that it was the beginning of the week last week. February 3rd tells you where my brain is at. 2 kids, snow delay here in Connecticut. It's been a long morning. But yeah, we, I'd say probably this is, I think the first round conversation has probably shifted to the second round here for Jalen Milroe after this past week, and probably after and this is the reality. People get upset with the people that are doing draft analysis and say, you change your board. It means you didn't know crap in the first place. No, the reality is that the information that I had at my disposal was different than the information that scouts and executives and coaches have at their disposal. And so some of it is catching up. There are players that the media gets ahead of that the league falls in love with later on in the process, and vice versa. And you're trying to, when you're doing your mock drafts and all that, not just place players where you believe they deserve to go, but also generally where you think the league might believe that they want to go. So there are going to be some guys that are going to, quote unquote, move up the board and move down the board over the next couple of months here. So my stance is that I think by the time it's all said and done, Jalen probably finds himself somewhere in round 2 or round 3. And I think round 3 would be the downside scenario. You just find that there are way more sellers than there are buyers for Jalen. But we have seen quarterbacks who have had imperfections come into the NFL and get drafted really high. I'm not saying that every team would have taken Anthony Richardson 4th overall, but by the end of his time at Florida, I remember talking to friends of mine who are Florida fans, and they were like, there's no way this guy's the 1st round pick, much less the 4th overall selection. So sometimes I have to remind myself and others out there that it just takes one to really fall in love with what a player can be. I think in the 2nd round, and beyond, when the risk is so significantly downgraded because of the contract and the ramifications financially, I think Jalen hears his name called, and with time, I think can become an interesting player. But he's really got to get coached up on the fundamentals and the mechanics. And I'm not going to sit here and point to a specific fundamental or mechanic. It's just the consistency. He's got to be the same guy, throw in and throw out, because you're right. I mean, you just can't afford to have wide open guys not catch passes because the quarterback lays one 5 feet short of his target range.
Field Yates joining us on the Buyers Right hotline of ESPN, talking Senior Bowl. He was in Mobile for the last week. Speaking of what players can't be, I feel like that was the focus of Jackson Dart early in the week, not being able to take snaps, not being able to play in a pro-style offense. That changed dramatically throughout the course of the week. How far did he go? How much did he improve his stock in Mobile?
Yeah, it's still early enough in the process where people are going to think that when you say things that haven't been said a ton prior to it, that you're just doing it for attention or clicks or what have you. I left Mobile thinking that there's a real chance Jackson goes in the 1st round. I thought just stacking him up relative to the rest of the quarterbacks, I thought he was the most consistent passer. And, Jackson's a good athlete, right? He's not an elite athlete, but he's not a statue in the quarterback as well. There are plenty of quarterbacks. I'm just throwing a random one out. I think Jackson is at least comparable level scrambler to like Trevor Lawrence, right? And no one says that Trevor can't impact the game with his legs, but nobody confuses Trevor for Lamar Jackson. So just to give you kind of like a baseline of where I evaluate him athletically, I think he's at least in that tier. And I thought that by the end of the week, the shotgun thing was probably, or the under center snap thing was probably, I don't know about a non-issue, but I didn't see it's not like he was incapable of doing so. It's not like Jackson didn't do it in college because he's not able to do that. It's more, Lane's hanging 40 points a game. Why bother fixing what isn't broken yet? Jackson, and this is something that I gathered talking to the staff there at the Senior Bowl, the people that organize and do a great job with Jim Nagy and his crew, and then also some of the coaches that are working it this week, was that Jackson was excellent behind the scenes. He was doing a great job during the meetings, which, as you guys know, when you're talking about any prospect, but certainly the quarterbacks, you're not just investing in the player, the skill set, you're investing in the person. And you got to have a guy that's capable of being the leader of the team and, getting the huddle broken and getting guys lined up and knowing where to go. And because of the broadcast we did this past week, we had the opportunity to be on the field. And it's really a special experience every week. And Jackson, you could hear him and you're sitting there listening to him make call the play in the huddle, get guys lined up. Hey, running backs offset to the left, supposed to be offset to the right. Hey, maybe the tight ends flip to the wrong side of the formation. He's getting guys lined up. He's helping with protection. He's identifying coverage, things like that, which showed a pretty cool and unique understanding of the game that maybe people don't think Jackson has because he played in a different offense. Lane talked about this briefly in our broadcast too, Lane Kiffin, about how, people are asking about, making play calls that are more than 3 or 4 words. And Lane noted, that's what we do. It doesn't mean that he can't do it, right? So I think there's a chance Jackson ends up going in the 1st round. By the time we get to April, I think there's a chance that we're talking about him as a guarantee in the 1st round. Long ways to go here, but as we know, quarterbacks, always are in major demand. And once the carousel spins, with free agency, and guys like Sam Darnold find their place, and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and maybe Kirk Cousins, if he is traded or released, finds their place, then I think the view of how likely a third quarterback is to make it in the first round becomes a lot clearer. And it certainly feels like Jackson has the best chance to be the third quarterback in some order beyond Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
It's amazing how desperate teams are this year to find the diamond in the rough when it might just not exist. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's just I've seen Jackson Dart. Go watch the LSU tape, man. It's hard. It's a hard one for me to figure out when it comes to talking first round pick. Like I
hear you, Greg. Greg, I hear you big time. That game, there are a couple others that, even in like bad weather and in winds, like Georgia, like it felt like the defense was bearing down on him, and you're playing aliens. Totally with you. I hear you. I'm with you. It is an interesting one, and there's going to be some people that their initial exposure is one of those games where it didn't go great for Jackson, and they're thinking to themselves, really? On the other end, you might be a team that's sitting there at 20 or 25 or what have you, and you didn't get a veteran quarterback in free agency, and the options are, well, we could, and I'm just, throwing this out there. There's going to be quarterbacks like Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton that have started a lot of games, but you kind of know what the ceiling is. And so there may be some teams that say, hey, you know what? Like, this is the best option. It's imperfect, but it's the best. I don't think that's the comparison. I think the one you're going to hear a lot is Bo Nix for Jackson, not in terms of style, but in terms of like the way that they moved up the board, so to speak, during the pre-draft process. I'll say this, like Bo's tape was, there was a lot more of it. I thought Bo's Oregon tape was definitely better than Jackson's, his tape at Ole Miss this past season and last year prior. But, I think just following the draft closely and understanding the patterns of the NFL, if you told me by the time it's all said and done, he hears his name in the first round, in mocks, I got one coming out next week myself, wouldn't stun me. That's kind of where I've landed on Jackson, even if, my personal grade right now is not, quote unquote, first round grade for him.
Phil, before we let you run, wanted to just get a Super Bowl question in quickly. Do you have a heavy lean here? It feels like a lot of momentum is starting to build up for Philadelphia. And it's going to be almost impossible for me to get out of that mindset of I'm not betting against Mahomes, man. Like I'm interested in kind of where you land on that.
Yeah, here's what I would say is, and then this is, way to go out on a limb here by me, guys. And it's, this game that we could think about from 106 different angles with 106 different players on the two rosters. And that I just keep landing back on this. I have a hard time betting against Patrick Mahomes. It's such a terrible answer because it's so obvious, but there are times where I just don't want to overthink it. And this Chiefs team has such a clear identity now, which is not Patrick Mahomes being a mutant and throwing for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns in a game. It's, they grind you out on offense. They run these, they have these 10, 12, 14 play drives where they chew up 6.5 minutes of the clock and get you off your momentum offensively. And Philly does some of that too as well. The Chiefs, and just defensively, they're so fearless, and Spags, their play caller on defense, is so innovative and just has great instincts and timing of when to throw the curveball and catch the quarterback off guard. So I get it; it's boring to some people, but I'm having a hard time picking against the Chiefs, even though the game is not played this way. But if you ask me to kind of rank the rosters, who would I prefer in a vacuum? I probably lean towards Philly, at least especially at the non-quarterback spot, but. Mahomes, with all that he's accomplished and the chance to, really enter the conversation even more than he already has about going down as the greatest player ever, and I already think he's number 2. I'm picking the Chiefs. 28-25 was the score that I submitted, but I hope it's a great one that lives up to those kind of expectations.
Absolutely. Phil, thanks for the time. Really do appreciate it. We'll catch up soon.
All right, guys. Talk to you.
Phil Yates joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. We will talk a little bit of NBA when we come back next on Mac and Cube in the morning. $8:54 Monday, February 3rd, Jocks 94.5. Did we just witness the biggest trade in NBA history? And Greg, this one that hits home for you, I know, because you are a diehard Lakers fan and a diehard Mavs fan, as someone who grew up in Dallas and grew up in Los Angeles. So this one had to be very emotional for you, as Luka Doncic going to the Los Angeles Lakers essentially for Anthony Davis. Just a massive trade in the NBA. We don't talk a lot of NBA, but this one that is newsworthy for just about everybody.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I remember when I saw it, it was Saturday night, and it posted like last minute. I'm getting ready to go to bed. Dad and I had just, watched some basketball and watched some, the replay of the golf. Going to bed, it's probably 10 o'clock. And sure enough, Shams bomb drops this, and sure enough, it was real. I mean, I thought it was fake for a second. I didn't know what was going on. Was your reaction similar? Like, no way. Hang on. You're going to trade for Anthony Davis, a guy that is hurt all the time, it feels like, for Luka, who's been a perennial all-NBA player? Like, I was shocked. And then, yesterday, and buzz starts to come out, like there's more to the story, and it maybe makes a little bit more sense. And the people that are really, really knowledgeable think that this is actually a good trade for the Mavs.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I still don't know if it really makes sense because you hear the stories of nobody knows and LeBron didn't even know, which I do not believe. I do think it's a little bit odd, even in the positionless NBA today, that LeBron would be okay with an essential point guard coming to join that roster. That was kind of surprising to me. But then you see where Luka was exactly 300 points shy of Michael Finley's standing franchise record of 12,389 points. And you learn that Michael Finley is the assistant GM for the Mavs. Just one of the very many things that are a little bit odd in this entire thing. Also, if you were being a little bit petty, Luka in line to receive a 5-year, $345 million contract this summer.
Wow.
He will no longer be eligible for that, as you cannot have the Supermax deal if you're not with the same team. So more on that when we come back, as well as Richard Hendricks after this. Hour number 3 underway, Monday, February 3rd at 9 a.m. on Jocks 94.5. We don't talk a ton of NBA. We did a little bit on the last side. We'll add a little bit of that to Richard Hendricks, who joins us now. Going to be with us every Monday moving forward at 9 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. Analyst for the SEC Network. But this one's so big that we need to get your opinion on it. And that is Luka Doncic going to the Lakers. Anthony Davis will go to the Mavs. A couple other pieces of that will be discussed later. But this is a massive trade. And just interested, Richard, in your thoughts on it. There are a lot of, I guess, bullet points to the hows and whys this thing took place, but shocking when you think about just these big of pieces going to be moving to these big markets.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And for me, I can't wrap my mind around the fact that you trade a guy who just leads you to the finals at 25 years old in the middle of his prime. I mean, so it definitely has to be something within that organization that they're just probably, quite frankly, tired of dealing with it. But I don't know who won this deal because you look at how is Luka going to be able to play alongside LeBron James? What's the long-term vision? AD has been healthy as of recently, but, there's been times where people have questioned his durability. But it's an interesting trade and maybe the most interesting trade I've ever seen in the NBA.
Feels like it, that's for sure. I mean, I don't know enough about what Anthony Davis has been doing. I know Luka's been banged up. He got hurt on Christmas, hurt his calf, I believe, or so. And I know, look, he never looks like he's in top tier conditioning. I mean, just look at the guy. He looks like he, maybe isn't as much to take care of his bison. Maybe he'll go downhill faster than others. Maybe they anticipate injuries becoming a problem. I have no idea. But Anthony Davis has been injured. Like, that's been proven over the course of time. So why would you roll the dice on the guy that has not been overwhelmingly reliable for most of his 13 years in the league?
Yeah, and he's older. I mean, significantly older. I mean, I do think if a player's not taking care of their body, I mean, you do know that the injuries are going to come. And he's having those soft tissue injuries and things that happen when you're not in good shape. And it only leads to more issues that never seem to go away. So they may be anticipating that this is something that is just part of who he is and going to be around. But I just look at a guy who's 25 years old. And from my experience, a lot of times players just, you get more mature with age and you learn how to be a professional and you don't lean so much on your talent and you lean more so on the wisdom of how to go about taking care of your body and being a pro. And even though he's been a dominant player even since he was 17, I mean, I played against him when he was in Real Madrid at 17 years old. I mean, so he's been doing this stuff for a decade, but there's still room to grow at a young age. So that's the biggest thing for me. And Anthony Davis has definitely had some years where he struggled with his injuries. I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting just to see how this all works out.
We're talking with Richard Hendricks on the Bias Right Hotline, former Alabama great, now at the SEC Network. And we'll start with Alabama as we move to college basketball, Richard. 90-69 to get a win against Georgia. Fairly dominant fashion. Mark Sears back at 20 points. So it feels like whatever the potential issues were with that situation have kind of moved themselves to the side. And this is sort of the Alabama basketball team I think that most people expected to see over the weekend.
Yeah, Alabama's playing really good basketball. I mean, they've started to get a lot of production from the roster. When you talk about players coming off the bench, I mean, last game you're seeing some things from Aiden Sherrill and Aiden Holloway, as well as he's able to continue his hot shooting. Mo Diabate has just been, a Swiss Army knife to do so many things when he comes off the bench. He's so impactful, and this is making Alabama dangerous. And if they can hold teams down defensively, as they've been able to do in the last couple of games, then they can really be a tough team. I mean, a big win that they had on the road at Mississippi State, and Georgia's a physical team. So it shows that they're able to play a rugged style and a rugged team and still get a victory. They're starting to hit their stride.
What do you want to see from this group as they continue to grow? I mean, defensively, really encouraged by some of the progress that's been made there. They've always been able to score it, but do you feel like they're starting to really hone in on that end of the court? Do you feel better about where they're heading there?
Well, it's a challenge to judge Alabama defensively because they play at such a high pace that, if you look at statistics, you can always say that the best defensive teams are the ones that are going to be walking the ball up the court. And Alabama, as far as a complementary style, is going to push the tempo. So it's more possessions in which they have to guard. But for me, I'm going to be interested to see, and it's the big man in me. I'm interested to see how well will Alabama play against teams that have really good interior play. And obviously, with Auburn being the number one team in the country, Alabama probably move up in the rankings. Everything's look like it's headed towards a top number one versus the number 3 matchup on February 15th. It's going to be how can Alabama, with the 6'11" front court all across the line with Clifford Amore, Grant Nelson, Jaron Stevenson, how can they hold their own against a team like the Auburn who can pound it inside, get on the offensive glass, and quite frankly, just dominate teams in the paint? That's the area that I want to see if Alabama can really hold their own. If they can do that, then I think they're really, really going to be hitting their stride and showing their true potential as everyone predicted they would be in the preseason.
I feel like Auburn has done that. So Richard Hendricks joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking college basketball from over the weekend. He'll be with us every Monday moving forward. Janai Broome seems back to 100%, if not 100, as close as he's going to get to it. Auburn out rebounds Ole Miss on the road 41-30. So dominant fashion, specifically on the defensive end. Is that the area that is going to be most difficult to deal with for this Auburn basketball team, is the size and physicality?
Oh, yeah. I think it starts right there. Listen, when you got a luxury of Janai Broome, who's a walking double-double, and then you get Dylan Cardwell, who's giving you some offensive production off the pick and rolls and the offensive rebounding that he was able to do in the last game, and big rebounds for second chance opportunities when they were not able to hit shots. That's just something that you can't account for. And Auburn was able to answer every single run that Ole Miss had in that last game. And it was because of just the physicality. They were able to get tough rebounds and kick it out and then hit timely threes. They were able to hit tough shots from the guard play. So the spacing that they have, the elite shooting ability from outside, and you pair it with the ability that you have to be able to throw it into the paint and pound the offensive glass, they're looking strong. That's the reason why they're the number one team in the country.
How would you assess where they would like to potentially grow? They can beat you in a lot of different ways. We've seen them fill it up, and we've seen them grind teams down. Where would you like to see growth from Auburn as a whole?
Well, the growth has to be, when you're on a talented team, is just staying focused. They have all of the pieces to be there in the end. And I think they are extremely motivated after last season's first-round exit in the NCAA tournament to Yale. I think that was an embarrassing moment for the club. I think that a lot of players who were on that team are playing with a lot more of a sense of urgency, and they've been able to avoid these trap games that they've been able to play in SEC play. You have Tennessee, a grind-out game at home. You had LSU, which is a tough team as far as their athleticism is concerned, and they were able to beat them on the road, and then go to Ole Miss, who can play physical and rebound well and get it done. They've been able to weather those storms, and that shows a lot of character. But it's going to have to be a matter of that you don't get bored with just winning. You have to continue to remain hungry, and that's what you want to see from a team who's showing elite status.
Is there a team in this league? We've talked about the top, and we know that it's deep as far as teams that could be in the tournament, could make postseason runs. Is there a team that's maybe accelerating here in the middle of the season that we're not talking about enough, that you see just getting better and better, and maybe a little bit further ahead of where we are talking about them?
If it is, it's probably Missouri, mainly because it's a team that went 0-8 team in the league last year, and now here they are sitting in third place in the league at 6-2. They've been able to get some quality wins on the road in the league. You win at Florida, and no one was really talking about it. Caleb Grill is a really outstanding shooter that they have that's been playing at a high level. So what Dennis Gates is doing at Missouri definitely has the open eyes. But listen, you can go up and down through this entire league, and you're going to see flashes from each team of brilliance. And at the same time, you can't ever underestimate anyone. You see that in the last game that you see with Kentucky at home taking on Arkansas, who was in the last place in the league or only had one win, and you go into Rupp Arena and get it done. So, the talent is there, the coaching is there, and it's just a matter of teams having to stay focused, because if you don't, anyone can beat you.
Is there a team right now that you feel like is poised to make a run, just down the stretch, that you feel like maybe it hasn't all clicked? I mean, the obvious one would be Arkansas. I think that feels a little, just based on a 1-6 start, tough transition. Then they go to Rupp and get a win. I mean, obviously that's pretty impressive W, but is that a team that could become dangerous? And is there one that maybe got off to a slow start that you wouldn't want to play down the stretch?
I think the team that you have to watch out for is the team that was the number one team in the country at one point, and that's Tennessee. Tennessee has struggled offensively to manufacture points, but their defense is just stifling. They can just choke you out, and that's how they play. And if they're able to get some offensive production going in the back nine of SEC play, this is a team that can try to close the gap and get back in this thing. Now, that's obviously they're going to have some help from Alabama and from Auburn. But you've been able to see when Tennessee goes on the road and plays Auburn in a close game, able to beat Kentucky when they were shorthanded without Zakai Ziegler. So it's just so many of these things that you see with Tennessee, and even to beat Florida when a lot of people would have thought they would have lost that game, that they've been able to show some flashes that they can be resilient and that they can get big wins. Even though they've been able to drop some, if they can get it going on the second half, they can be as dangerous as people expected them to be.
To hold Florida to 44 points, I mean, that's insanity. Where is, for us that don't know the game like you do, we know that there is extra physicality, but describe to us where Tennessee's defense becomes so difficult for teams to find points against.
It's difficult because they're physical at the point of attack. And what I mean by that one is that watch teams around the perimeter when they are passing the ball around and notice where defenses are playing against them. If they are off their man or if they're pressed up into them, that makes it very difficult for, players to pinpoint passes around the perimeter to do a good job. And it's just like football. I mean, a quarterback can't make a good throw when you got pressure in your face. And Tennessee does a really good job of being on their man. They can guard their guys individually. They do a good job off ball as well of being physical and chasing around through screens and whatnot. So they're a tough team. And then they're able to rebound. When they're doing that, it's tough to play. And the complementary aspect is when you have what I believe is probably the best point guard in the league when you talk about a true old-fashioned point guard, and it's Zakai Ziegler. He's able to control the tempo of the game. And when he's able to get the rebound or get the outlet pass and control it and walk it up the court and play at the pace that they want to play, then everything changes as far as the style is concerned when other teams want to play at a faster pace. So they're able to dictate tempo, and that's how they're able to get it done. It's just a matter that they have to get some things sorted out on the offensive end to create shots. As I mentioned, they've been able to have some good wins. I mean, they dropped one to Kentucky earlier when Kentucky was shorthanded. They did it at home. But at the same time, that loss came because they weren't able to hit shots. But if they can get that done, then this is a team in the second half that can make a better run in the SEC.
Just quickly outside, I know you live in the SEC for the most part, but quickly from the outside, Duke, I don't know how much of that you saw, but it was one where I had to make sure the kids weren't watching. It was a beatdown against North Carolina. It feels like Auburn, Duke, and Alabama in some ways have separated. That's my perception. It's February 3rd. I understand that there's a lot of time between now and the end of the year. But is it fair to say that those three are kind of in a league of their own, and then the rest of the world is kind of jockeying for position as the number 4 team?
Well, I can definitely see that. I mean, you're going to have some teams that I do think will be there at the end because of their style. Houston, and obviously Houston is a team that has lost some games against the top teams in the SEC. But it does look like that. And mainly I think Auburn and probably Alabama are probably ahead of Duke. Duke is not going to be tested in the ACC. They have a tremendous player, Cooper Flagg, who's going to be maybe the national player of the year. John Shire has done a tremendous job in what he's been able to do at Duke this year, but the ACC doesn't have the firepower that it's had in recent years. And Duke is not going to be challenged moving forward in the ACC play. I think that's going to have to be something that you say, how much does the schedule of the conference help prepare you moving into the NCAA tournament? The SEC teams have the benefit of knowing that they've been playing against high-level teams every single night, who some have different play styles, and that's going to be important when you get into the NCAA tournament because you never know who you're going to be matched up against. But I do agree with you. Those three teams have been starting to set themselves apart from the rest of the field. But it's a lot of basketball to play, and a lot of things can happen.
I don't think there's any doubt. Richard, we definitely appreciate your feedback. We always appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to visit with you every Monday, man. Have a good week.
Thank you, guys.
Richard Hendricks of the SEC Network, former Alabama great, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. For all your insurance, financial, and HR needs, it's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. Why would a Division I head coach not want to play a spring game? We'll discuss it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Monday, February 3rd, right here on Jocks 94.5. Going to move on from college basketball. Great conversation with Richard Hendricks. Also, Andy Kennedy, if you missed either of those, podcasts always available, jocksfm.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get yours, or just go download the Jocks app, and you have all the podcasts available to you right there. And you can also click to watch us live on YouTube each and every morning. If not on the app, search JOX945. You can watch live on YouTube each and every day. Before we continue to move on with college football news from over the weekend, G-Mac, tell our listeners if they're looking to move in or out of their new home, who they should call.
It would be Crocker Moving Services. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. When they need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, they got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchase and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website is crockermovingservices.com. It's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
Sanford takes down the Citadel over the weekend, 83-58. They get to 18-5 on the season. Citadel goes to 5-16, 0-10 in SoCon. 4 home Sanford games were made. Wednesday, February the 5th against Mercer. February the 12th against UTC. February 19th against Furman. And Saturday, the 22nd against Western Carolina. All those games 6:30, other than the Saturday, February 22nd game against Western Carolina, which will be at 2. But want to talk back more college football. We mentioned some of the news and notes. Massive weekend of coaching changes in college football as Ryan Grubb will be the OC at Alabama. Chip Kelly, the OC at Ohio State, is going to the Raiders. Their offensive line coach, Justin Fry, is going to Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals of the NFL, that is. And their defense coordinator, Jim Knowles, also already out to Penn State. Tennessee special teams coach Mike Eckler is going to go back to Nebraska. And speaking of Nebraska, their head coach Matt Rule over the weekend discussing spring game possibilities for the Huskers. When Lane Kiffin had his Oxford Olympics for the spring game last year, Greg, and a lot of folks pointed fingers and laughed and said, look how dumb, and this is silly, and nobody cares about this, and nobody likes this. And we came in that week and said, well, hold on now, there might be a little bit of different portion of this, that why this is happening, and tried to educate the folks on Lane doesn't want people to see his players. And yes, Lane's got a couple guys that could be pretty good that haven't played a lot of college football yet. And I'm not sure that he wants to put that on notice for everybody to go see with another portal window that's going to open. Point blank, excuse me, I'll give you one right out of the gate that I know for a fact you look at and say, not sure everybody wanted to see him. And then all of a sudden, Daquan Wright at tight end, who nobody was talking about before the season, late in the year, he goes 27 for 394 and 4 touchdowns. With Priestcorn being banged up, was a pretty important part of that Ole Miss offense. So I think this is exactly what Matt Rule's saying. This is why other coaches are doing it. The problem is going to be the networks. They need the inventory. They want the inventory. They got to have something to put on television. And I don't know where that middle ground is going to end up being.
And I'm not sure the networks, just so you know, like as crazy as this may be, if you put a spring game on the air on ESPN against a college basketball game that is not considered, quote, marquee, you have a ranked matchup between 2 top 10 teams, 2 top 15 teams, 2 top 20 teams, the basketball game will win. But a spring game from a rating standpoint, if on ESPN, up against a college basketball game, the spring game rates higher. Yes, you heard that right.
I'm not surprised. So,
it's actually in some cases not competitive. So it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Now, marquee basketball game involving Duke, North Carolina, those are obviously big brands and they move the needle. And the top teams playing against the top teams are going to move the needle as well. But a spring game is going to average a significant number in the spring. So the networks, for those that will say, well, the networks are going to have this, no, the networks have a lot of say in this. Not only is it the inventory, but also these are sales obligations. There's numbers that they have long. It's like bowl games. When people say bowl games don't matter, why do we play 41 bowl games? Because they rate. That's why, because they average over 2.1 million viewers a game. The Duke North Carolina basketball game might not do 2.1 million viewers. So that's the biggest basketball game on the schedule. So these are big business decisions that are going to be made. And I don't know what you can do do you not play your young guys? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's an answer to it, but I don't think spring games are going away across the board, but it's going to be an interesting thing that you got to figure out if you're one of these coaches. Even with a portion of the game, I think you're going to get a little bit more what you got from Ole Miss last year. It might not be a dunk contest, but it could be, 7-on-7-ish, maybe even more individually based with certain players. But it's going to probably end up being more skill based and probably more practice based, where it's just you're actually getting some real work, but you're not working your entire offense or your entire defense, or certain guys aren't going to be out there. You're definitely not going to be showing. For a long time, it's been how much are you going to show of your offense or of your defense. That's been long gone. Now there's going to be guys you're going to look at it and say, well, hold on, where's that receiver from Calera that we thought was going to be great? Like, why is he not even out there? Well, now you're going to know. So go ahead and answer that question has already answered itself as to where some younger players who you might be excited about, you don't see them in their spring game. They don't want anybody else to see them. And maybe this will be more time for more reps for walk-ons or guys that aren't going to play, try to help develop a little bit of depth, way down the depth chart of guys that you didn't think were going to contribute too much. But at the end of the day, it's weird. It's a weird time that we're in. I love spring games. And I know a lot of people just laugh at them and point the finger at them and they think they're dumb. And I love them because there's always something you can take away from it. Like, look at Trayvon Ball in Florida spring game last year. Not a single person was talking about Trayvon Ball before that game. And I'll be honest with you, not many people were talking about him after it. But when I was on the phone with the Florida assistant and there, I said, man, the ball kid looked kind of nice. They're like, yeah, he's 237. And I was like, I'm sorry, hold on. You just said what? Like, oh no, he's 237. And then you go back and see the way that he was making people miss in that game. You're like, okay, this kid we need to put on notice. Like, we might need to be watching out for what he could potentially do this year. So I actually get something out of him. You have to actually look for things to take away from him. But I don't want to see him going away. One, I want live tackle football anytime I can get it, even if it's not a competitive game situation against two different teams. But also, I like to try to learn about these teams if I get opportunities to. And to see them go away, we're going to get less and less of that. And that just makes our job harder going into the season to have an idea of what we're going to get. We know what we're probably going to get from Ryan Grubb, though. And we talked about it a lot earlier in the show of just how excited Greg and I are for Coach DeBoer and Coach Grubb to kind of get back together. Before we dive into that a little bit further, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Shannara Flooring. Well, Shannara Flooring is great. And you know that Fu and his company will take great care of your home. It's hard to replace your floors. As someone that's done that, it can be disastrous to replace your floors. Whether they're jackhammering in your home, there's dust, there's debris all over the place. It can be a problem if you have people that are doing the work that you don't trust or that aren't respectful of your home. That's why Fu and his company at Shannara Flooring, they understand the concerns and the challenges, and you can put your mind at ease so that you don't have to worry. You know that they are built on a foundation of trust and integrity, and that if you're deciding to replace old carpet, if you're upgrading to hardwood, if you're replacing tile, what have you, they will take great care of you at Shannara Flooring. They're right there in Homewood. They're locally owned and operated. So when it's time for new flooring, ask yourself, call who? Call Fu. Call and direct at 205-518-6423. And you can see all the new styles for 2025 at shannaraflooring.com.
You want to discuss Alabama's new offensive coordinator? You can get into the show now, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Larry wants to talk coaching moves around college football. Larry, welcome into the show.
Hey, guys, I love the show always. Just want to say, seriously, guys, I'm a little older than you fellas, but it's amazing the audience that we're in, what you guys, as well as the Morning Jock show, as well as the 3 Men Front, what y'all bring every day. we're so blessed. That's all I wanted to say. But one thing about Coach Grubb, I've heard a lot about the guy. I've not read a lot about him, but y'all obviously that's y'all's cup of tea. This is what y'all do for a living. But a friend of mine was telling me he was with Coach DeVore. I think he was at Fresno State and Washington. But a buddy of mine said that I don't know if he was at Indiana. I don't know those details. I'm just asking you. But somebody said wherever Grubb has been with DeVore, they've had phenomenal numbers at other schools that are really outstanding and unbelievable numbers, so to speak. And I just wanted to ask your opinion of that, guys, and see if y'all could exploit that to the people. I don't know much about Grubb, but I just wanted to ask for your insight on that. And thanks a lot, guys, for taking my call.
Yeah, Larry, they were back together at Sioux Falls. You go back D3, and they've been together for a long time, known each other a long time. He's a former offensive line coach, which is one of the reasons that I have a little bit more of an appreciation for him as a play caller. I think he sees things a little bit differently, and he and Kalen have both told me face to face that they do see things in different ways because of that at times, but it's a good sort of back and forth that they can balance each other out of what they need to do, how they need to handle different situations. I think it's a great ad, not just because of him, but because of how he, Kalen, and other guys on that staff do work together and have worked together, Greg. So that continuity is going to be there. And I think that just makes this an even better get for Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, the continuity's there. The trust is there. Being able to work seamlessly and completely delegate without having any responsibility whatsoever, knowing that the guy that you're putting in charge of your offense in this case is in complete control and has proven over the course of many, many years to be able to formulate terrific plans on a week-in, week-out basis. Great continuity and development. Development is huge here. If you look at this staff, I mean, they have developed not one, but two NFL starting quarterbacks in the last 5 years. That's pretty impressive considering both of those quarterbacks were not highly regarded high school prospects. Jake Haener at Fresno State was a middle-of-the-road guy, under-recruited, undersized, started games in the NFL this past year for the New Orleans Saints. You also look at Michael Penix. Michael Penix was developed over the course of many, many years, dating back to their time at Indiana, and obviously finished his career as a top 8 pick. Wasn't a guy that was, a can't-miss 5-star plus prospect like Bryce Underwood or someone like that. And these are guys that were developed and cultivated, and Ryan Grubbs had a hand in that. Kalen DeBoer's had a hand in that. So I think just the proof is in the pudding with what they've already done this over the course of time. Now it's, doing it with endless resources and a little more pressure. That's about it.
Definitely more pressure, specifically after last season that was not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be, but will add to it because of somehow some people view it, just the way that it is in today's college football. And I don't think to the naked eye the offense is going to appear to be that different. It's going to look that different. I do think the mentality, we talked how many times last year, Greg, of why not just try to live downhill for a minute? Just give us a little bit of downhill threat for a series or two series, and got it late in the Wisconsin game. There was another game or two that I felt like, I think the Missouri game, after it got a little bit out of hand, like you knew it was going that direction. That one kind of got downhill for a minute, but very rarely did Alabama seem to sort of even try to live that way. That could be a portion of it that I feel like does definitely change with Ryan Grubb at the helm.
I think so. I think a little bit more of a, I'm not going to say like complexities in the run game, but it felt like when in doubt, they'll go quarterback pin and pull sweep last year. You know what I mean? I just think maybe a little bit more complexities from a trap standpoint. They did traps. They did ISOs. It's definitely a between the tackles run game that Grubb liked to employ at Washington. But here's another thing too, though. Like these guys have been known and have proven over the course of time to adapt to their personnel. At Fresno, there's a lot of dink and dunk, pitch and catch, short passing attack, intermediate passing attack, some West Coast principles. At Indiana, they used quarterback run. I mean, a lot of quarterback run, a lot of stuff like that, because early in Penix's career, before he had a handful of season-ending injuries, he was a dynamic athlete with the ball in his hands. Then you look at what they did at Washington. It became more about deep ball, big play, creating and manufacturing downfield passes. things like that. I mean, that they will evolve to what their skill set is capable of evolving to. So I think it's a smart staff, a really cerebral staff, and the one that got a lot better with the addition of Grubb.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. So we'll continue talking about it. Your feedback on it, tweet in at Mac and Cube, text in 205-834-9450. Call in 800-239-9569. Coaching changes around college football will continue to be a part of the discussion as Jim wants to join in on the Buyers Right hotline. Welcome into the show, Jim.
Hey, thank you guys for taking my call. Hey, now with Grubb coming aboard, does that mean a whole brand new set of calls that the guys are going to have to get used to, or are they going to stay with it and then maybe Grubb will just critique a few of them?
I don't think you're going to be looking at a lot of differences as far as the play calls, how the calls are made, what the calls were referenced to, numbering, lettering, anything like that. I don't think that changes at all, Greg, just because, I mean, this was the offense before. It's the offense hasn't changed. It's from the baseline blueprint perspective, it is the same offense.
Nothing will change. They are the exact same team, the same philosophy, same terminology. Nothing will change outside of maybe what plays are run when. That's about the only thing that will adjust.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, move on. Continue talking college football. Coaching changes next on Mac and Cube in the morning. So you think about Ryan Grubb coming back into this coaching staff. Does it make you more confident in what Alabama might be able to be this year, GMAC? I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainties when you know who the starting quarterback is. There's going to be a little bit more roster turnover. I mean, heck, still could be coaching turnover because this cycle is just going to be later with when college football ends, when the NFL ends. Everything is still taking place. But just immediately, does it make you feel a little bit better about the ceiling for this Alabama team?
I don't know if it changes much from that perspective. I feel like it was in good hands before, if I'm going to be completely honest. I just feel like this is only going to kind of allow Kalen to maybe float a little bit more, which is beneficial. So I don't think it changes my expectation level. I think the team's going to be really good this year. As you really go back through and look at the guys that were lost last year to injury and the young guys that were given reps as a result, and while there was inconsistent performance, it's a very young football team for all intents and purposes, with a quarterback that was really, inconsistent at times. So I'm super optimistic about what this team's going to be this year, and Grubb being there only furthers my level of optimism.
I think it makes me feel a little bit better about when you're talking new quarterbacks, some new offensive linemen, a couple of other pieces, tight end that are going to be gone that weren't there before, being able to overcome a little bit of that, just having his brain power in there to be able to help out. It gives, I'm not saying that I think now they're going to win 10 and I thought they were going to win 6, but level of confidence definitely goes up a little bit with just what I think he's going to bring to the table. And like I said before, the continuity that was already there with these guys working together, understanding one another. I just think that's something that's a little bit different than what you have at a lot of other places. It's just that you don't have similar continuity at a lot of spots within the coaching staff to where they bounce things off one another and essentially make one another better. And I feel like these two do. And I feel like some of the other guys on staff go along with that.
I think so. And I think that if it allows, look, I think Nick Sheridan's a really good coach, right? I think he's a really, really good coach. So whatever position group, and he also has played quarterback, has been in those boots before, like knows the position. So I think there's value in that. If he stays with quarterback, and I know we're not at this point sure who's going to be doing what and who's going to be managing what, but he is a very valuable part of this staff because he played that position. Like he knows and has seen it and played it at Michigan, by the way. So he's a guy that has been at the top of the sport. He gets it. I just don't know who's going to go where. All I know is that you have now added a really good coach to an already really good staff. I've already been optimistic about this staff. Now it allows Sheridan to maybe go coach a position group that needs a little more attention. It will allow Kalen to maybe focus a little bit more on how he wants to get and maximize what they're doing defensively. And granted, Kalen's an offensive guy, so he's going to still spend more time offensively, but maybe he can now spend a little more time with the defensive staff. And another thing too, recruiting. Like you now add a guy that has been a coordinator in the NFL. And I know NIL is more valuable now than ever before, but I still think it's really a solid thing to have on your resume. Oh yeah, I called plays in the NFL. I know what it takes to get there. I've been there. Like I think that's helpful. So you now have a guy with more NFL experience that's added to your staff when maybe that was part of the knock that people were using against them. Hey, they don't have a lot of guys that have been in the NFL. Well, now you do. That's helpful, I think, from a recruiting standpoint as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubts. All right, we will talk about that just a little bit more. Get to our bad box scores of the day on the other side. Before we go to break, tell you about my friends at Royal Auto Mart. They want to help you experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location. Selection and savings unmatched. Royal only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. 0% months is back. 0% for 60 months, is back on Volkswagen Tiguan models. $10,000 off select 2025 GMC Sierra models. Choose luxury and safety that you expect from the Volvo SUV lineup of XC40, XC60, XC90 models. Go see my friends at Royal. They're going to help you get the best deal available. All offers valid through March the 3rd, 2025. Certain restrictions apply. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Auto Mart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 of Vestavia. Online at royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. And remember, for every ride, there's Royal. All right, when we come back, bad box scores of the day, and we wrap a show up on a Monday on Jocks 94.5. Monday, February 3rd, 9:50 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. We have discussed a lot of coaching changes across college football today. Also, settlement agreed upon with Tennessee and the NCAA over the weekend, which, Greg, essentially is going to allow collectives to now negotiate deals for high school players, transfer portal players before they commit. So a bit of a relief sign for Tennessee there, and more power seemingly stripped from the NCAA.
Yeah. I didn't know the NCAA was still rocking and rolling. It's good to know. That's the biggest takeaway there. What do you think?
Knew they were around, but it's I mean, there are portions of it that are disappointing to see that they're not going to be able to police anything. And this ruling just goes further into that. And now collectives can go to a high school kid and negotiate a deal before they commit to a certain school. Same thing with guys in the transfer portal. So times have changed and are continuing to change across all of college football. Let's get to our bad box scores of the day.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
Intentional grounding, offense number 7. It's a 10-yard penalty. I'm talking to America here, excuse me.
That's the game.
All right, we will start in women's college hoops. The Norfolk State.
I feel like I should know this.
Are
Tigers?
Are they the Eagles?
Spartans.
They
get to 19-4, 6-0 in conference with just sneaking past the South Carolina State Lady
Bulldogs.
Correct. 83 to
Yeah, I thought it.
37.
Ooh.
I mean,
Now,
we've seen worse.
In complete oddity, bad box score of the day fashion, South Carolina State led 17-4 after one.
Okay.
And then it all went south. You're scoring in the three quarters after 34-6, 25-9, and 20-5.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if there was a starter that did not start the game or if I don't know what happened, but I do know that South Carolina State shot 15 of 49. They put 10 threes up.
How many did they make?
Just one.
Okay.
Only one.
Well, 10%.
They were out rebounded 44.
They didn't go over.
No, they didn't. Which 1, 2, 3, 4 players on the team did go over from behind the 3-point line. They only turned it over 24 times.
Okay.
And were out rebounded 44 to 31 in the game.
Okay.
Norfolk 29 of 67, 8 of 32 from behind the 3-point line. Also in women's college hoops, the Jefferson Community College.
They're the Cavaliers.
Kind of close, but no.
The Justins.
They are the Cannoneers.
Cannoneers.
Cavaliers.
The old Cannoneers.
Yes. They just went down to the Mohawk Valley Community College.
They're the Indians.
The haircuts.
Just the Hawks. So they shaved the mo off and just went Hawks there. I do not have statistics from Jefferson Community College. Probably not a secret as to why, with the final score being 105 to 43.
Okay.
Your score after the first half. This is back to men's hoops, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Your score at the half, 53 to 15.
15. They scored more the second half. So, elite
Jefferson,
coaches.
Congratulations. You have a good coach on your hand, according to Lee County media.
Wow.
For the game, Mohawk Valley Community College shot 45 of 92.
Put them up.
92 shots in a game. Only 18 threes, by the way. They made 7 of them. 11 of 13 from the free throw line. Grabbed 48 rebounds, 40 defensive rebounds.
There we go.
Probably not a lot of second chance opportunities there for Jefferson Community College in that game.
No.
They had 7 blocks and 12 steals.
There we go.
Game. And finally, the Roxbury Community College.
We've had them before. They are
we have had them.
Are they the Rough Riders?
No.
Oh.
The Wranglers.
They are. This is back to women's hoops, by the way. They're the Tigers.
Oh.
And they knocked off the Community College of Rhode Island.
Uri.
No.
I'm sorry. Roxbury went down to the Community College of Rhode Island. They're just the Knights. It's not really complicated there. 86 to 14 was the final score of the game.
Not great.
86 for one team, 14 for the other team.
Not what you're looking for.
Score at the end of the first quarter was 37-0.
Oh
no.
The old 37-0 run.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, maybe they just said, "Hey guys, there's 100 points available today."
I feel like Rhode Island kind of pulled off after that, and it was 9-6, 18-4, and 22-4 after that.
Okay.
So,
all right, this one might actually qualify as an all-timer.
Yeah. 37 of 61 for College of Rhode Island in the game. 7 of 20 from behind the three. Only went to the free throw line 6 times. They made 5 of those. They had 35 rebounds, 15 steals, 4 blocks. I do not have statistics for Roxbury. They did not track those.
Why?
Why
not?
Well,
no need to.
in the first quarter, Greg, they actually had none. They didn't score a point.
Right.
So there's what do you?
But did they have rebounds?
I imagine the scorer there said, "You know what, guys, we didn't score in the first quarter, so we're done. I'm walking away." I just
hey, good coach though.
Why keep stats when you don't have a stat?
Exactly.
We haven't scored, so therefore I quit. I'm not doing it anymore.
Look how much better they were in quarters 2 through 4, though.
I don't know if I'd go much as 14 points in 3 quarters of basketball. Losing 86-14. I could see why the official score just said, "I'm going home to play Fortnite."
Did Rhode Island cover?
I'm out.
I'm pretty sure they did.
I hadn't seen the tape or the line on this
72.5 was the line.
We're back tomorrow. 3-man front is next.